Nisqy is the fireman
Okay.
of League of Legends. He will come to your team.
That's the
He'll
title
look
right
at
there.
all the fires,
Yeah.
turn out a bunch of
Okay.
fires, and tell your team how to play the game.
Right, this is another episode of the Best Damn League show. Full stop, as I'm calling it now, to truly reassert dominance of the Anglosphere. It's not period. Anyway, the guest for this episode, it's actually sort of like a this is your life. Now, Peter, when you were at Heretics, this young man maybe recognised this voice. Peter, you have to stop Trimby calling like that. Anyway, whatever, you get the joke. It's SeeEl. SeeEl's back. The guy who used to be the coach in Rogue/Koi. He's now actually the coach in Keith Stars. Technically, it's Vivo Keith Stars, you're supposed to say nowadays. Where actually, he did indeed do one of my favourite moves of all time in sports and esports, which is you did the old Brian Clough/Mourinho, which is wherever you go, you just go, are any of my boys out there from the old teams that got gig? Just come to my team, mate. I know, you know me, I know you. Just come to my team. So he actually has Trimby on his team, believe it or not. They actually play on the same team in not CBLOL. That doesn't exist anymore. It's now obviously LTA South, that amazing name that we all love. So how are you doing, SeeEl? Welcome back to Europe in some sense.
I'm doing all right, thanks. It's great to be back on.
What's it like to work with Trimby, by the way? What's he up to nowadays? Actually, by the way, no joke, he is one of those people I still think should be in LEC. I think he's good enough, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very lucky to have him here. He's one of those players that are, I would say one of the generational talents from Europe, and I definitely think that he has the level to play LEC as well. It's
Yeah.
just that, I guess he wanted to work with me a little bit more, and it's been a
Okay.
pleasure so far.
Listen, I've heard loads of great things. I've heard everyone says it is already. Also heard he is a generational wider. But listen, even then, it's a hard choice, and it's Europe, mate. Everyone's a wider. No one even knows what that means at this point in time. Peter, what do you think? What's it like to be reunited with SeeEl? Listen, don't worry, guys. I'm not an idiot. I did ask before, and it's not any beef or anything with the way it's all broke up. I don't want to make some awkward Jeremy Kyle show or whatever. So go. What do you think, Peter? What's it like to see SeeEl again?
You can be honest. You can be honest, Pete. I don't mind, mate.
Okay.
It's that Trimby had the worst possible situation you could possibly be put on from any single player,
Right.
from Heretics. He wasn't even there from the start from last year. So I think that it was hard. He's somebody that definitely does better on a team he's comfortable on, and basically Heretics did literally everything in their power to make him uncomfortable last year. So that was a bit rough, but obviously glad to see he's going from strength to strength in not CBLO in LTA.
Yes.
And I mean, for people that don't know, Keed Furia were the team that went to EWC and MSI, and Keed have just beaten them 3-0 in upper bracket, which means you guys don't play. That doesn't qualify you directly to Worlds, but it gets you into the cross-regional. At the worst case scenarios, you guys are in the cross-regional bracket, right? And best
Yeah,
case
we're
scenario.
guaranteed. We're guaranteed top three in Brazil now, and we play the upper bracket semi-finals in 2 weeks. And if we lose, we play the lower bracket semi-finals, and then yeah.
Okay. Right. By the way, just as a quick ask, so you're still looking on LEC? Still care about our region? Technically, you're not actually from Europe, by the way. I wouldn't blame you if you said I don't give a fuck about. I don't work there. You still care about LEC though?
Yeah, I would say that LEC formed. I mean, Europe in general formed a large part of my identity. I try to watch their games as much as possible, and obviously I have a lot of European pride despite not being a European. I take a lot of pride that I had the honor to work there, and yeah, maybe it's a region that I'd like to look at again in the future.
Okay.
I think you're a bit modest there, Chris. Also worth saying that SeeEl is a LEC champion on Rogue.
True. That's absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, and by the way, in the era when if you're supposed to be a Fnatic fan, you were like, you can't win. Just G2 wins all the splits. No one told Rogue, mate. They won one. They even won one, by the way, on a real arena. It wasn't even in that bullshit studio that everyone was winning for all those years. They were in Sweden. They had that crowd going for them. I will say, SeeEl, without making this a whole thing, I will say the hidden part people maybe don't know unless they've listened to the interviews about that particular championship, though, is I've heard that's one of those crazy things that does happen in esports where actually everything was going to shit. And if you guys didn't win that championship, it was all probably over anyway. So, like, even though it sounds bad that it did get broken up, the squad afterwards, like, I was kind of like, I've heard even the people in the team were kind of shocked everyone won that final. Is it true?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say somewhat until we got to Melmo. So I think a big challenge for
Right.
that roster was just how we handled. I mean, it's so long ago, and I'd say a big challenge of that roster was just how people got along with each other, and they needed that strong voice when we came to the team. But a strong voice will only get you so far. It's not going to really make players trust in each other. Maybe it'll get you across the finish line in the game, but it's not going to make you completely trusting each other. And when we went to Malmo, the whole team atmosphere changed. We just felt like that we're going to win this thing. We just felt like we could put all our differences aside because the context was we made a final the split before and we lost to G203. And then we did a reverse sweep, went down through. Everyone expected us to lose to Fnatic. And so G2 actually prepped for Fnatic. And I asked Jankos this the year after, and we managed to somehow 3-1 and then 3-0 G2. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it was like nobody believed, but people believed when we got there.
Okay.
And I credit a lot of that to people like Trimbian and Odoamne who put aside everything and just said, okay, like when we're in the game, we play together. And that was amazing to see.
Okay. Right, let's get into current LEC. So SeeEl, by the way, that is technically how you say his name. It's not supposed to be SeeEl, it's supposed to be SeeEl.
I prefer SeeEl now. Like
you have to realize it's basically just his initials, guys. If you knew his initials, his name's Chris, so it's C. Get it anyway. You get the point. You get the point. So anyway, it's all good, right? Let's go. Oh yeah, by the other joke I could have made, but we haven't got 10 minutes to go into it. Is obviously in some ways you actually were prepared to go and work in CBLOL/LT South by enjoying European esports Twitter. That's almost like the training room, and now you're actually in the real. You're in war now, mate. You're in the battle. Like it's rough out there. I've seen some wild shit on your Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I see it a little bit as an opportunity because I do think that good media training is like well trained people in terms of like how to deal with media is like lacking and
Sure.
and Brazil is a bit crazy, so yeah, I'm learning a lot here.
Yes. Okay, well anyway, let's get back to Europe. What is good at the moment in LEC? What's good, SeeEl?
I think the big thing for me is like Dylan Falco. I'm a big admirer of his work. It's hard to really see exactly how much someone is doing in a team because there are a lot of internal things that happen that people don't usually like understand or see. But what you can tell from the outside is something that he's been amazing at is drafting. And I think he's gone back to drafting well, especially against the Fnatic series. I was really happy to see some of the adaptations he made. And some of the draft edges that he got. One big thing was, Talia on red side. So for people that aren't too league savvy on the competitive side, on red side you get 3P and 5P. You pick the third pick last, and you get 2 bans, and you pick the very final pick, which means you basically get to see their composition, ban 2 for that pick on the third pick, and also pick on the very, very last turn. So you can choose how your draft goes, and this is important when you take Talia on red side because you essentially get to pick a champion that can push and move and play to these counter-picked lanes. And it looked like he was very well prepared for the answer to Talia when they didn't take Talia. So yeah, I mean, I thought that his draft reads were much better in this series. I thought that he'd struggled earlier on in this year, but he's done a massive step up. And the other big thing for me is like this guy is just undoubtedly, one of the best coaches in the world. I think that his consistency and synergy with his players, like you talked a little bit about how I bring guys that I've worked with in the past. I think that's natural. But his guy happens to be Caps. And his synergy with Caps is by far the best out of any of the coaches that he's ever worked with. That's very clear. I think it's very clear how that team operates. I think he's got a very clear hunger to continue to succeed, which is rare in esports. Actually, you tend to lose motivation after so many wins. And finally, his synergy with Romain. Like, I think that guy as a GM seems to be brilliant, from my short conversations with him. And he seems to balance really well personality-wise with the GM, where he can provide a little bit of leadership and Dylan can provide the strategic knowledge. So yeah, my good point is G2 and Dylan Falco. I think this guy's brilliant.
Fair enough. I mean, what do you? So just a little bit on the Romain thing. Like, what makes him stand out to you as a good GM?
I think the big thing is that he seems to have very strong convictions, and he follows through on those convictions. And I guess this has been a really big like learning journey for me too, because you know I wasn't very experienced as a head coach before I came to Brazil, and you have to do things that you believe in this position, and that often means you get criticized a lot. Um, I mean, for example, I would never have done the Yike Skewmont move. I think that Skewmont
ballsy,
also
right?
played quite. Pardon?
It's ballsy, right? I mean, he was a champion with
Yeah,
younger players, yeah.
yeah, and to be honest, like I don't feel that Skewmont played better than Yike at all, especially in MSI EWC. But I think we're starting to see a little bit of that fruit of labor,
Sure.
and my understanding is he did that because of data. That's my understanding. Because there's this data portal that Mephisto built, who's the ex-coach at Fnatic Vitality, and I've used it myself, and it's really good. It's really good, and I think Romain saw some insane data from Skewmont. Of course, I don't agree with these changes, but he just did it himself, and I don't think it's the first roster change he's done, right?
Right.
So I think that's really brilliant, and that's normally the job of a head coach mostly, and he seems to be the main guy in charge in that team. So I think that's what makes Romain brilliant. And the other thing is just general leadership skills. I ask people like Rodrigo, who works in G2. I believe he's the analyst right now, but he also kind of works as a coach. I say like, hey, dude, how do you deal with difficult situations like media day? Because now when I'm in the position that I am, I'm like, oh wow, this stuff is actually really hard. Players are perma complaining. Like looking back on when I worked under Peter, I realized how much I was trolling him, like how much I was making mistakes under him, and how I made his life really,
Right.
really difficult for no reason. Um, and he seems to handle it well. Like from the stories that I've heard, right? For example, I heard that he tells players like, you can skip all media days if you want, but then you're cutting 70% of your salary.
Oh, I love it. I love
And-
it. Yeah. By the
Yeah,
way, what's
that's-
actually ironically genius about that is you've made them think, well, I want to do the media day to get the money, whereas instead they normally think, well, I already get it anyway. That's actually quite brilliant framing. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems little small stuff.
Sure.
Seems just like a dad yelling at you, but that kind of stuff is actually hard to find in esports.
Absolutely.
At that level of maturity.
Plus, he does also strip half naked and then paint himself every split. Whatever. Listen, I used to get. I've realised I am actually the boomer on that because I just used to get triggered by that. Now I realise actually it seems pretty cool to be fair with me. It's whatever. It's all good, and it is a good spectacle. I will say that it does draw attention. You know, it's all good. And I'm also hating if you know what, Peter. Maybe if I had a body like that, maybe I'd take every excuse to take my top off too. You know, who knows?
Take your top off like that? You wouldn't ask the players to do it.
Pete, your mic's cut out.
So if the players know that you're willing to do that, then maybe they disagree with you too much, and they're the ones who don't have to do it next time. You know?
Okay.
The discipline.
True.
No, I agree. I agree with your point. I think G2 definitely, like, the thing that impressed me about G2 and about Dylan is about how he managed to keep his team focused after what was frankly like a dreadful MSI. I mean, they had a really, really poor MSI, and to be able to bounce back both for EWC. Okay, EWC had a lot of mitigating circumstances. Non-European teams were jet lagged, etc. But it would have been very, very easy to rest on the laurels of EWC and not come back into the split firing as hard as they did, right? And one of the things which I think is really important if you are a top team is that you cannot allow yourself to slack. Because if you are the third or the fourth place team in a league, you have no excuse to slack, right? You could always see who you're aiming at. You can always focus on that as the team that you should be beating. But I think that it would have been very easy for G2 to come in to their first series against Heretics, for instance, and not put them to the sword, right? To have a slightly sloppy game, you've just come back from a bit of a break, you've had fewer scrims than other teams, and they just went out and they just murdered them. And then this week they murdered Fnatic in a Fnatic team that were 3-0, but it's kind of one of the fakest 3-0s that I've ever seen. But they came out and they just completely didn't allow them to play. And it's been one of the weaknesses I think that G2 have had, especially in that team that was winning everything, not the 2019-2021, but the 23-24 one, is that often they would be a bit sloppy in their wins, right? You could always rely on them in playoffs, but in regular season, they were sloppy, quite sloppy, right? But this split, at least, they've come out really, they've made some statements of intent. I wouldn't want to be the second place team in Group A for sure, who has to play these guys in a best of 5 to go to Worlds, through upper bracket. And yeah, I think that comes from the top. Sometimes it can be player driven, but if you have a team that is this group of players, it's very clearly either a coach thing or a GM thing or team manager thing, right?
I think it's both.
Top. Yeah, I think it's both. And I think that it's been very impressive watching G2 this split so far.
Oh, we also forgot the fact that he re-signed Caps. Let's not forget about that.
True.
It's not hard to keep. Think about it. He held on to Dylan Falco and he held on to Caps, and it was very clear in the articles that were published publicly. Caps signed for less, not more.
Okay.
True.
So Caps signed for a lower salary to help keep G2 sustainable. So think about that for a second.
Oh, by the way, I know what you're praising. Here's why that's actually not even as simple as it might seem. That it might even imply, SeeEl, that when they had their conversation in the off season, maybe they even told something to Caps if you want us to get a specific player, you insert who it might be, or you want a specific change, then we need you to renegotiate the contract. This is how good sports chairman's done. Yeah, I know what you mean. That sounds all that accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that it, Peter?
That's it.
Okay. I will just say, the reason why I actually think it's quite cool that the good point here is Dylan Falco is I actually think, despite the success G2's had this year in the LEC, where they've been in both finals, there's actually many past weeks where you could have actually put Dylan Falco in the ugly or the bad category, because actually, for this year, one of the points that all the people I know who are the experts in League keep telling me is, it's actually one of the things that's been underwhelming about this G2 roster in Fearless Draft, because everyone already hyped Dylan Falco as the master chess player in the draft, in the old standard draft format, because he was the best at, baiting out the early, pick out the other guy, or letting you do a pick where you think it's good, but he has the hidden counter or something like that. Well, the problem was everyone thought, Fearless Draft, that's going to be Dylan Falco's kingdom, mate. He's going to be loving it. But the problem we found is, he doesn't have the same roster as he did last year. So the problem with this roster is, it has been way more predictable, even in Fearless Draft, actually. And in fact, actually, G2 looked like one of the teams where, I wouldn't say they struggled, but I don't think they got the most out of Fearless Draft. They're not one of those teams where I'm put it this way, they don't have the rep that Tarbes Anyone Legend did, where they just looked like monsters every time they got into the middle of the series. But that in itself, by the way, I agree. First of all, this is the best week for G2 in the regular split anyway, so I think it's a good time to pick him. And the reason why I also think it's a banger to pick him as the good point is because I've got a very quick point to make here, which is one of my favourite American football players. I understand this is more a crowd that's a football soccer fan, not the American hand egg, but it's all right. I follow it for whatever reason, guys. Right? And when I follow it, it's a player called Aaron Rodgers who used to play for the Green Bay Packers, right? And what he had a period where he had a couple of injuries, and he used to be, statistically, one of the craziest players in the NFL. And then he had a year where the team did really well, but his numbers were sort of half of what they'd usually be. He didn't have a crazy amount of touchdowns. He was just all right in most areas. He was still good, but he was just all right. And what he said was, because after that, he came back and won the MVP the next 2 seasons. He said something in an interview, which is a banger quotable line. It's one of those ones you should put on a t-shirt. He said something, everyone kept saying to him, well, you had that one down year. But again, as I say, his down year was still pretty good. So his line went, a down year for me is usually a career year for other quarterbacks. I would just say the same thing about about Dylan Falco. Like, first of all, nobody can tell me this year the excuse of the last 3-4 years of like, he's just got the best roster by far. Not even vaguely true, by the way. You can't even particularly argue, by the way, that Caps is like, he hasn't even been an MVP candidate this year. Like, he hasn't even got that cracked a roster. I'd even argue maybe the Fnatic and Carzzy Corp rosters are better. Like, I don't know. So one, and yet, here's the point. This is why I tied it to the Aaron Rodgers thing. Everyone's saying his style doesn't work in Phillies. Oh, he only tripped over and made both the LEC finals. So a bad year for Dylan Falco was like, yeah, I guess I didn't win the championship. I was just in the finals. Like, bro, every time we come into these playoffs, everyone predicts against them and says they're going to come like third or fourth and still go there. Even though I totally agree, by the way, this MSI was shit. It was actually one of the worst I think I've ever seen from a Dylan Falco squad. I'll tell you what, EWC was a real tournament though. They did beat BLG. They did win another just like they did in the beer fight. By the way, here's the thing. Everyone who wants to poo-poo the fact that at MSI and EWC, they won one game off Gen G. Here's a stat you can put in your motherfucking oven. Here's one for you. So Gen G has played 27 best of threes in the LCK, and they've lost 9 total games over 27 best of 3, by the way. So actually, winning one game each time you play against Gen G, that isn't actually fucking chopped liver, mate. Like, I don't turn my nose up at that. That actually implies you did a decent draft, or you got your team in the right headspace where you can even win a game. Right now, those guys just 2-0 everyone on every other fucking match, it seems like. So, no, I think it's a good angle to pick him. And also, I have always thought, actually, a skill he has is, even though in interviews he comes off like quite soft-spoken, and he's never really leaned heavily into that G2, like we trash talk and banter angle. That was more like, he leaves that more to remain. In fact, actually, even lets Memento do it now, you'll notice. He doesn't really do it that much himself. He only did it as like the clap back against the Giotto one at the beginning of the year, which is quite funny, when he said it was like the easiest draft ever or whatever. Even then, that's not that harsh. But I will tell you this, one thing people maybe don't know about him is, from talking to him over the years and doing interviews, he seems to also, and I think this is key for a coach, have a really good sense of like who his players are. Because I've always thought a really bad mistake coaches make, at least when they describe their style, is they do make it sound like it's binary. You either have to like give the player all the pick power, or you have to give him none and he's a child and you just control. No, Dylan Falco, as far as I can tell, is one of the best that I've seen at sort of knowing the player and then knowing when it would be a bad idea to give that guy the pick, but knowing when it's like it's the right time to empower him. And that, by the way, I can tell you talk to anyone, Mark, all of them, that is half the fucking secret right there, mate. That like a sweet spot is so difficult to find in League. And I can tell you, I'm pretty sure there are teams where, like, I don't know, in T1, does Faker just get all the say? Does he get no? You never know in some of those squads. So yeah, as far as like all reports I've heard, always told me this guy was a G every other year. This year, like I say, maybe hasn't been that good. Even so, not that good. Still made both finals. Probably going to be in this finals too. Probably going to Worlds again and MSI. And we all get it. We get it. So yeah, good week to highlight him. Good choice. I agree. Okay then, Peter, what is your good point?
So my good point is vitality. Yeah, I mean, people go and flame me.
You've been waiting for this one.
Okay. It's irrelevant, but look, they 2-0 this week, and should I tell you what? They 2-0 this week with Knack being their worst player. Like, Knack was so who am I going to hype up this week? I'm going to hype up Linkus and I'm going to hype up Syak because, obviously Linkus is a guy that obviously I rate very, very highly and have rated very highly for years and will continue to rate highly even when he runs at 0-5-0, like he was doing against GX. I mean, this guy finally looks like he's playing League of Legends. I was a bit hyped in the preseason when they played in the NNO Cup and were like, the NNO was the off-season cup where SK and Vitality played some ERL teams. And basically, it looked like a week where Fleshy just being... what's the word I'm looking for? Just being inoffensive. I mean, just not doing anything fancy, just like literally being a support that is just like a B-/B tier support, just literally doing his job and not running it down. Finally allowed Syak and Linkers to play the game that they wanted to play. They had a very, very strong series against KC, and sure, Carzzy played very well in that series as well. But I think that, sometimes part of the narrative that goes around Vitality is Vitality are the team with the one super hype rookie, Nako, who I'm guilty of doing this a bit as well, right? Who, if only this guy was on Fnatic, what was the Reddit? I read some stupid Reddit comment, like, if only this guy was on Fnatic, he would be the best. He would be like an insane top laner and win all the titles, whereas if he was on Fnatic, he would have gone the same way as Oscar, like got shit on by all the fans for playing too flippy and then eventually stopped playing flippy and then played within himself. But anyway, that's a separate topic for Knack another day. But basically, Linkus and Zayek. Linkers is not quite a rookie, but he only came in summer last year, so he's like, yeah, he's literally just finished playing a year, so he's like just beginning his sophomore year, I guess you could say. And Zayek, also playing at a very, very high level. It's really good to see. And the big thing about Zayek is there certain players have reputations in ERLs for being a bit of a choker, right? And like some players, like Zayek was definitely one of those players. But let's be clear, right? Like in LEC this year, Knack has been the one because of his off-meta picks and his like hard carry performances who gets the highlights, deservedly so. But Zayek has quietly had like one of the most impressive years of a rookie, and him and Linkaz finally look like they're able to play some League of Legends. So it's really, really good to see. I mean, we'll see how Vitality do against Koi because, Vitality beat Koi 2-0, and they have a matchup against Fnatic for a best of 5 where the winner goes to World. So that will be an interesting one to say, considering how Doomerai was on them after the first week when they were just getting murdered by. Basically, what happened this season with Vitality is week 1 they got destroyed 2-0 by GX. Didn't even look completely lifeless. Had a week off for week 2 because they didn't have to play. And then week 3, they beat Na'Vi. Good job, guys. You beat Na'Vi. But then they had a very, very good performance against KC. And Sayek and Linkers finally playing together, finally looking good, and it gives me hope because for me, it's obvious who the top 4 teams in this league are. But the strength of the LEC, the strength of any league, is determined by how strong your 4 to 6 teams are. And it looks like if GX and Vitality can be a very strong 5-6, then it's good for LEC and good for LEC in moving forwards into the future. So yeah, good job to Vitality, good job to Sayek, and really, really, I didn't think I was going to be saying this at the start of the split, but Vitality versus Koi next split, Koi next week, Koi playing below par, Vitality playing like this. It's a banger. Right, looking forward to the next split. So next week, So we'll see how things go.
What do you think, SeeEl?
I mean, I agree. I mean, this Vitality, that's the thing with Vitality though, isn't it? Like, Vitality is the first European team that I worked for, if people didn't know. I came here and got my first opportunity with Neo. And obviously, I'm always thankful for them and their management and everything for that opportunity. But they're a team that whatever you put in together, whatever roster you make, for some reason, they end up being really shit. Like in LEC, I don't know why. I do not know why. Like, whatever you do, they just end up being really shit.
Yes.
But maybe this year there's a bit of hope. I'm hoping. Like, I really like the names involved. I like the coaching staff. I like Sayek. I like Linkers. I liked how they performed against KC. But as much as I want to merit those guys, I also think there's a little bit of internal problems maybe at K Corp. That's what it looks like. I mean, they recently brought in Nisqy, So, I mean, from the outside, it does look a little bit like that. And that's going to happen when you have such a strong performance in Split 1 and you have a bunch of guys that have never won before. And then, some strong names in that roster in terms of like, it's very clear that this guy wants to be the carry. Canna, Caliste, right? These guys. So I'm interested to see how they navigate. But yeah, great performance from Vitality. Hope that this ends up being a successful run for them. Somewhere, like I'm wearing Vitality shorts right now, actually. Somewhere deep in my heart, there's a little bit of Vitality in me. So let's hope that they carry the momentum on. And great coaching staff. I want to say that twice.
And by the way, it's a random detail. Technically, one of SeeEl's boys is in LEC because he coached Skeens, who's obviously now playing for SK Gaming. Briefly.
I coached Apples too. Briefly. The coach of K Corp.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Listen, maybe not the week to be big and K Corp coaches, but don't worry about that.
And Vladdy.
Oh yeah, okay, fair enough.
Actually, I forgot.
Fair enough.
When he was 16 in Grandmaster, I told him he could go pro.
Okay.
Yeah. A couple of them in there.
Debatable how much he matured since then, but again, topic for another time.
I think I had absolutely nothing to do with his success.
Fair enough.
But I just look. I haven't been to Europe in a long time. I thought I'd name drop a couple people.
Yeah, that's good.
Farm a bit of aura.
Yes. Listen, mate, you need to, because I did that whole intro and then forgot to even mention you were an LEC champion, which is sort of like not a minor detail in many ways. And spoiler, we're not having many LEC champions as guests, so I probably should have led with that. Well done, Peter. Okay, right. First of all, this is the most on-brand fucking pick of all time from Peter, because obviously every other week, like, Vitality has probably the most appearances ever in like the ugly section of this show, because he's always trying to like rationalize some way that like it could work. And I have to say, and I'll add in as well, people forget this detail. This week essentially is like part of how Mac keeps his job. Remember, it has been said publicly by the aforementioned Neo, essentially like, sort of like, we'll just basically fire the coach and stuff if they don't get the shit together with Vitality. And so the stakes are pretty high. And this format obviously is very unforgiving. So they essentially had to perform. And this is actually, by the way, easily the best performance I've seen from the Vitality in the Mac era. Like, I don't care what players they had last year. It doesn't matter. Like, they're like second and third games in this series were some of the best like league they've played, probably in the Vitality org in fucking years. Like, it was actually legitimately some really, because it wasn't, here's the problem. We can certainly talk about KC, and we will later in the show. But if you just look at the Vitality side, bro, they actually had everything you would dream of from like a Mac team. And all those moves they've made in the team, the roster, the jungle support change, etc., they all look justified. I mean, as Peter suggested, it's not even like it was just like, oh, Nak carried the game. He wasn't even particularly good. It actually was all the other things. It was like Linkcast looked really good. You can see why they've like doubled and tripled down on this guy a million times. They've only just made the support change, so a lot of people would have said before, jungle support synergy non-existent. Like you say, are some players chokers? Like, I think, yeah, general, excellent. If we're focusing mainly on Lynchers as well, this is the player where, as I've said on past episodes, you have essentially gambled your careers on this as the coach, this player, because first of all, a lot of people still hold ill will against you when he wasn't doing well of how the Douglas guy was treated. Their logic is like, well, if Linkers has got the same problems, why did we kick Douglas out? Like, why did we bring him up and then sell him the false bill of goods and not give him the time? So I think a lot of people were ready to just reload that same opinion about Linkers. And actually, if Mac gets fired from this team in the future or isn't with Vitality, that would be one of the players they'd point to. Like, that was your problem, child. You could never get this player at the level he's supposed to be. And people know, fully enough, ironically, it was Carmine Corp. This guy wasn't a nobody. He was very highly touted, and a lot of people wanted him and thought he could be sort of their like missing piece in the jungle. What are you going to say, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, and KC have publicly like implied very, very publicly that basically they wanted to put him in LAC, and Vitality poached him or like did something dodgy to get him, right? And
yes,
like as a result, like this guy is probably the most hated player in the LEC, right? Like in terms of pure numbers of people that hate him,
sure,
because you know once KC fans decide that they hate you, like they're never going to let you forget, right? So like this is a guy that not only did you stake your career on, you like, you know, caused a lot of fuss, let's say, between fan bases in France in order to be able to secure him, right? And then, you know, you chose to drop Douglas, who is like well loved by the Vitality fan base, you know, in order to get a guy who you had to. So basically, you pissed off two of the three biggest French fan bases, right? In order to make this transfer happen, right? So the guy had better show up, and he hasn't really until, you know, this week, right? Been at the level that everyone thought that he could play. So yeah, I fully agree with you.
And as I say, it wasn't even like one player pop up. The team in general looked very good. They even had all the things you dream of, like good macro, good fucking team fighting, good positioning on the map. Like, yeah, I will say, this is also the most Vitality thing ever, to give this crazy tease right before playoffs and then probably just do fuck all in the playoffs and just ruin it anyway. But whatever, at least they gave us the hype. At least we got the hype, boys. Like, in a world where some of the other squads are falling off, I need some hype. I need some other teams to believe in. So fair enough. By the way, this actually leads perfectly into my point, because I obviously I let you guys take all the points first, but I do actually myself want to take a Vitality player. I'm going to take Carzzy as my good point, because I actually also do think, I said this on the last episode, I do think Carzzy himself, a bit like Mac, has somewhat tanked his rep on this Vitality squad, where what you've done is you've taken all the goodwill of past years, and in Carzzy's case, I actually think literally very recently is when the narrative started to turn, because I keep track of what the community generally thinks. And the difference before was the community was willing to give Carzzy entire splits where it's like, look, we remember you were really good and it was Hylissang that kept into you. Oh, now you've got Nisqy, who's not even a proper support, who's role swapped. I think people were willing to forgive Carzzy a million bad games because their logic was he doesn't have like a real supporter, he doesn't have the right support, he doesn't have somebody who's like willing to. The difference is, I think people finally had noticed this split. Like, he had some fucking rough games, mate. He just had somewhere he looked bad. He actually kind of regressed many years back and he was making his own ints. And, bro, he looked fantastic in some of these games. This was like he wound the clock back to his peak. This is fucking awesome. Like, this is, and remember, he is another player where, he's done his own version of it. He's tied himself to Mac. He's also gambled on that aspect and that pre-existing relationship, etc. And I think, by the way, when the CEO tells you that, like, you know, basically results must improve, that means everyone gets fired, mate, if it goes badly. So everyone's playing for their job right now, but fair enough. This is actually what you want when someone says that, for people to actually step their shit up and fucking swing for the fences on the way out. I thought Carzzy looked excellent this week. Like, it's one of the reasons why I am hesitant to just write this guy off and be like, yeah, he's ruined because of the past. It still looks like he's in there, mate. I mean, look, he is still a psychopath. He still just play outrageous in the game, but I like that the confidence is still there. He looked fucking sick. What do you think, SeeEl?
I think people forgot about the fact that Carzzy left Mad after winning twice in LEC in 2021, went to Vitality on that super roster, Alfari self-made perks, lost a bunch, then didn't even make playoffs in summer, went back to Mad in 2023, and then ended up winning Spring. True. So the way that I see it is this. I think that it's natural for coaches to have a bias towards people they think are good. Because, but there's nothing you can do about this. It's like this, even outside of sports, I think it's like this in companies too. Because naturally, you're going to think the people that are more attuned to your way of thinking to be better and more competent at their job. Because everyone has different management styles and everyone has different ways to work. Some coaches are a little bit more flexible than others. I think that Mac and Carzzy clearly have something going on. And yeah, I completely agree with you. He had a good performance this week. But personally, I think that this crazy part of him is like his biggest strength as well. You know, I think he makes team atmospheres lighter, and I don't think people realize how good that really is. It's actually like, I think the big struggle of esports players is how to handle stress. They don't handle it the best way. And he seems to be, from the outside, the type of guy to help other people handle stress better, at least.
Yes.
You know, while not being a complete asshat and half-assing games. That's what it looks like. And there's no in-between, by the way. There are the guys that can make things lighthearted, but they're just dog shit.
Yes.
They're just dog shit.
Yes.
So,
it's also underrated to be a star. I know what you mean. He's also doing it in a unique way, because if people don't know, most times it's usually actually not the star players that are ever the guys like lifting people up. It's normally like, you know, like you said, the glue guys, etc. And then more importantly, normally when people think of being like a good teammate, they think of people like Nisqy, where it's like he's just a cool guy, you know, and he's not going to be hurt. No, the thing about Carzzy is the fact he is actually, by the way, I think when I did my interview with him, I could sort of tell it's part of it's an act. Like it's his style of comedy, and he's not really being totally serious. Like some of it is like sort of like he's just like he doesn't break character basically. But it's like it's the irreverence of his humor that works. Like that type of humor like diffuses tension, if you know what I mean. Because it's not like oh, everything's fine, but it's more like like his joke really would just be like, actually we're washed and we're probably out in the next game. But that would make you think like, oh fuck yeah, why am I getting so serious? You know, there's still a whole game to play. That could bring you. I could see how that could sort of like trench humor style bring you out of it in a way. I know what you mean.
But there's a certain type of player that would really rub the wrong way, right? Like,
true.
He was on the roster with Alfari and perks. Like, let me put it this way: Carzzy is the type of guy who, if somebody went to him and said, "Be serious," like he would be mock serious, you know, like, right. Oh yes sir, you know, like I'll be really serious right now, you know. And I could imagine that there's a certain type of player that would really, really rub up the wrong way. But I mean, what I would say is, on a team where he's literally singing whilst on the other side his team is botching up. Like they had the clip that was on Reddit, right, from the Vitality comms, where literally Carzzy and Linkus are like singing whilst like they're botching a top dive situation, and like he's chilling on the other side of the map, and they're not like even talking properly in comms. They're just like, I can't remember the exact clip, but I mean, it's out there.
Yeah,
I'll be
Like,
honest,
he was singing like
I can't work with that.
Payphone or whatever it was called, like some song, right?
yeah, exactly, right? Like,
That would trigger me, by the way. That would trigger me if they're
Sure.
doing like. So I know for a fact I wouldn't be able to like handle that
Sure.
stuff well. If they're botching a play and you're like crowded comms, like that would mega trigger me.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing, as I think people have now acknowledged, actually it turns out that's also the secret added value of people like Carzzy. Like, it turns out it actually wasn't any of the others. It turns out he's the fucking humanoid whisperer. Somehow that humor with humanoid actually like pairs really well. That seems to actually sort of make that guy like lock in some way. It's why they probably should play together in their careers one last year or something. So just put it out there. Just put it out there, boys. Okay. Should we move on then? Right, okay.
Yep.
SeeEl. Everyone knows there's loads of stuff to complain about in League. So what is bad at the moment in LEC?
I mean, I think competition schedule is a big one. I understand Riot's willingness to Riot's like want to get more views. You know, especially in this down market. That's the whole reason behind this 3-split idea. That's my understanding, at least. Because more views, more airtime is more skins sold. You know, that's just the truth.
Okay.
And better sales to sponsors. But I think the way that I see league success and talent success and the ecosystem success is community. And what drives community for me is content creation and streaming. Not particularly the competition, but like individual content creation and streaming.
Okay.
And the ecosystem's changed a lot to the point where people get enough salary to not have to stream anymore. The golden days of League were perpetuated by a brilliant community that was growing and thriving. And one of the big reasons it's stalling now is a lot of the personalities that drove competition, like Bjergsen and Doublelift, these guys don't exist anymore because they don't have to stream. The competition became more serious. Streaming was seen more as leisure. And so you get a lot more less casual content and I would say micro communities on top of the larger community that really drives viewership. And I think by having these 3 splits, you don't really give time between splits at least to connect with your viewers. I think what I would prefer if I was in Riot's position is 2 intense splits, longer, more intense splits like we had before, more BO3s, longer airtime, even if we have some lower troughs, and incentivizing players and organizations to do more streaming, to create more content, to go back to the glory days of showing a little bit more of the personal side of the players so that the fans can connect from an individual level. And nowadays it's a lot harder to do that simply because of just everything. But the biggest thing for me is the competition schedule. Like there is literally 0 time in between. And then the other thing is like, and this is the bigger thing really, EWC and MSI player burnout. I think that this extra tournament that's come in added another thing on top of the players. So it's just incredibly difficult. I mean, you could just say it's an excuse, but I do think it's a legitimate point, a talking point. And personally, I think that, you know, sponsorships, etc., have a lot less to do with airtime and numbers and a lot more to do with conversion and the type of sponsors they're willing to take.
Sure.
You know? But that's a different topic altogether.
Go on then, Peter.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on this, right? Like, and one of the biggest obstacles is what is the best way to do content creation. Actually, I don't think it's. I disagree slightly with what I think you're saying, but maybe correct me if I've got this incorrectly. But like to me, I don't think it's about individual streaming, right? I think it's about like getting your players together and letting them have fun. Like play a casual tournament. Let. I don't want to say Vitality. Let BDS, go to. Actually, they've got Koreans on their team. Let Heretics. Let Heretics, right? Go to an off-season tournament and just like Los Vertones it, like have all the cams on, all the players playing together, playing in a for-fun tournament that doesn't really matter that much, and showing them interacting with each other, showing them playing with each other.
I'm telling you, I swear the most popular Los Vertones content is just the ones where they argue, bro. It's just the ones where they like debate a pick or what you do. It's not even the ones where they're like awesome in the game. I know what you mean.
Yeah. But the problem is, obviously, you can't stream other games
Sure.
as a unit. Right? Which, okay, fair enough. I
Sure.
get it. Like, you don't want to have. Okay, I'm just going to use Heretics as the example, right? You don't want to have your Heretics players going and playing Counter-Strike and playing in a Counter-Strike off-season tournament, right? Even like an amateur tournament, right? So fair enough. But allowing teams to go and play in these casual off-season tournaments, right? And they've only just allowed it. Like the whole point, the reason why I'm watching like the NNO off-season tournament, the reason I'm watching SK in my off-season for fun, is this is literally the first time that Riot allowed like LEC teams to go and play in these off-season tournaments for fun. So maybe they finally realized it, and maybe like the pennies finally dropped. But like, you know, I mean, I remember that there was like a KC off-season tournament, right? Which they did, KC Experience, right? Where Heretics were invited and we weren't allowed to field our LEC team. We were told like max 3 LEC players, and then you have to find 2 players from somewhere else because you can't put your 5 LEC players together in an off-season tournament for content, right? And like, to me, that is the most ridiculous thing. And actually, you know, people may meme FlyQuest a bit for streaming scrims, right? And you know, streaming scrims during playoffs, maybe not the best, right?
Sure.
But like, you know, having an off-season tournament where, you know, even if it's literally FlyQuest just beating up on tier 2 collegiate NA teams with all comms, you know, and like things like that, that would get fans interested, right? Or Heretics in a European context just doing that, right? Or better G2, but you know, G2's schedule is basically too busy to be able to do that, right? So I fully agree, and I think that having too much time in the schedule is fine, but it's not. Yeah, it takes away that. And let's be clear, right? Why do you have this situation where you have all of these people who are kind of faceless personalities? And I was just having a conversation with somebody from China the other day about this kind of thing, about why often Chinese players, like they kind of remove their personalities wherever they can, right? And it's about trying to get a blank slate so that fans can project onto those players what they want, right? And that for an Asian market, for Asian marketing, that is really, really good, right?
And
Like,
without leaning into it, this is an LEC show. If you've seen anything that happened in the last few weeks, probably the right idea, Peter. I think it's better for them to let the fans imagine who they might be rather than reveal what they really think in certain cases. Just an aside.
Fans tend to like. Oh, that's actually very, very true. Holy moly! But no, European fans tend to like their drama, and like nothing worse than like a blank personality slate, unless you are literally Caps.
Yes.
And like Caps does his like innovation on the rift, so to speak. You know, like he shows his like personality through spicy picks and things like this, right? But you know, having this push towards faceless players who all do the same thing, and like, oh no, to go back onto that on the drum. Oh no, Vladdy said that he's a little bit unhappy with how the fan base treat him. You know, like horror, terrible world. You know, like that. To me, that's part of the problem. And like, you know, it's no secret that I love watching Brazilian League of Legends. And why do I love watching Brazilian League of Legends? It's because players aren't afraid to go and show that kind of thing for themselves, and they're not afraid to embrace what the fans want out of them. And I think sometimes that is something that is lacking. That is lacking in LEC and especially NA, right? For sure.
I hate it when they yell, but they can do what they want.
Asian mindset, Chris. Asian mindset.
My guys yell too, you know, and it's just. I have my thoughts about it, but yeah, I agree with everything that you said. Although I must say, for me, like a big part of the game's vitality comes from the playing the game. And while these community events are really big drivers of people wanting to watch, I think a lot of people are turned off by the game itself nowadays. Would you agree with that? I think a big part of the community is turned off by playing the game, and one of the big reasons why people end up playing the game again is because their favorite streamer, their favorite player starts playing. A bunch of their favorite streamers and players start to play with each other. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot more to that. I think there needs to be a little bit more incentive to streaming, given that income for streamers are going down significantly. Hype is going down. I know that the numbers in League of Legends are stable nowadays, which is not a great sign. It means that it's not growing anymore. And so, yeah, I personally, as I said, I would like to see a little bit more of like individual content creation. I put a lot of emphasis on it, despite me being probably one of the most boring people to watch in the history of the planet. Just because I think it's the backbone of community, and community is the backbone for any game. You know, the early days of League were carried by people like Thorin, were carried by people like Bjergsen, were carried by people like Doublelift with some personalities,
Oh, of
were
course.
carried by back in the day Baylife. Nowadays, it's nothing. You know, so I
Can I ask
will
you-
act like a clown on camera. I will make content, but we need more people to do it, and we need people to realize, and we need to give them time to do it.
Okay, can I ask a slightly delicate question for this as a like current coach? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
let's say your players want to go and play in an off-season tournament with like, let's say, Pain Gaming. You know,
Mhm.
like let's say Karaok, Titan. So this is the Pain Gaming roster, right? Like, you know, four Pain players want to do an off-season tournament, and they want Trimby to come and play with them.
Mhm.
Where is that something, you know, and like, you know, as a fun for content thing, is that something that, you know, uh, is that worth, you know, because obviously that's going to make anyone uncomfortable. Well, I mean, maybe it doesn't make you uncomfortable, but obviously, when I was coaching, if one of my, you know, if one of my players was offered to join an off-season for fun tournament with like four players from another team or three players from another team, that would immediately ring alarm bells in my head, right? But I guess the question kind of is, you know, to what extent, because obviously orgs will like it if everyone from their team goes and plays together, right? But obviously, you know, it's more fun for the fans if you have these kind of like off-season tournaments where you have like one player from other teams or multiple people from other teams, you know, hanging out. They get to see their like, you know, Titan Trimby bot lane or something like this, which they've always dreamed about seeing, right? Like, to what extent, as a coach, do you know where should the line be drawn? To yeah, to go to ask a more specific question.
I think it's hard with this competition schedule. Has nothing to do with the players for me. You know, like if Thorin, I mean, Thorin's a big supporter of no work-life balance and you know, no human rights. We're kind of going through that right now. We're doing night blocks as well. So,
Okay.
you know, given the intensity of how like we're playing 9, 10, 11 games a day, like
Every
given the
day.
intensity of it,
That's wild.
uh, I mean, two times a week, three times a
Okay.
week, depends on how I see. I mean, I pay a lot of attention to how my players are behaving,
Sure.
in and out of game, and just signs of burnout, things like this. But depends. Like if I feel like they need a break, mate, I'm just gonna make them take a break. Like, don't even look at League. But if Riot gave us a little bit more leeway, I mean, maybe it's fun for him. If it's fun for him, go ahead. You know, the way that I see players is that if I haven't nurtured an environment that they love to be a part of, that they want to stay, that is better than anyone else out there in the market, I they can leave. That's a mistake that I've made, and that's on me. However, I could see that being a problem if you're in a more bottom of the table team with a bad team environment, or you know, you're scared of losing your star player, right? I don't really have that problem. I really believe that if I mean, we're a bit off topic here. Sorry, Duncan. I would say that like my philosophy as a coach is it's players first. Like if the players feel like I have their best interests at heart first, and that the team comes first before me in all cases, I don't think I don't think people are stupid. They feel that, they see that, and that's going to carry on to whatever team they're going to go on, and they're going to want to work with me again. And I think that's kind of my philosophy now. So I don't care if they go play.
Makes sense.
I will say I'm actually
Yeah.
surprised because when you initially said that the complaint was about the competition schedule, I thought you were going to specifically comment on like this split, like the summer split, because a lot of people don't like the fact that like you have this weird like two groups, but it's not like in LCK and LPL where it's like the really good group and the bad group. It's like a weird like it is split like back.
That too.
Okay, well, and then obviously, because one thing I will say about that is I'm not actually as down on that as maybe other people are, because one thing I think people are forgetting is they haven't looked at the playoffs. Like the whole point of that type of a group stage is just kick out two teams basically, and then if you look, it actually means you get in the playoffs way more BO5s than we had in any of the other splits. Like the other splits had those weird playoffs where it was like BO3s until like the upper semis and then like the lower final or something. And so I actually prefer BO5 for the playoffs anyway. So I don't mind essentially. Like as long as there wasn't some crazy fluke and a good team got knocked out, it's really about getting to the playoffs. But if you want to make it about the whole circuit, I do agree. I think at the moment they've made the mistake of being in, if there's such a thing as a sweet spot, then this is, I guess, the worst of all worlds. It feels like you've gone in the middle of what you... Because here's the thing to me. There's two ways that you try to make your schedule work. You either make it work because, like, I think this would be very naive, but maybe Riot did do this once upon a time. You either make it that you're trying to actually make the teams capable of winning worlds. Again, I don't know why that would have anything to do with, like, a regional league. I don't even think that should be in your mind. I think that's up to the teams and the players. But you either try to make the format, essentially, like LCK or something, whatever you think is the best format to give the team the best chance to be as good as they can, or you try and make the viewership very high. That is essentially what runs the entire industry right now, is eyeballs, which convert into sponsorship, which convert into dollars, which is why we're allowed to do this. And I've got to say, right now, it feels like they've gone in the middle, because they tried to have like a bunch of splits, thinking, again, more splits, more of your eyeballs, right? Then they're also thinking, well, you know, if they had like these fucking all these extra matches in the other regions, everyone's complaining, so we're going to have loads of... I don't think it's worked for either, though. I actually think, if anything, that you guys have nailed it. You sort of backdoored into the real thing, which is the real secret that we have. And this is what's cool, guys. It's only LEC has this. I always say, when I'm talking about Something Insight over the last 5 years, I think the biggest mistake that LCS made was they thought they were a sports league and they put everything into that. And the whole time it was WWE. But they essentially, in this analogy, brought in like good real college wrestlers instead of having like Hulk Hogan, etc. They were like right there, just waiting to have like a Macho Man Randy Savage. But that's like what Bjergsen and Jensen is, or fucking Double Lift or something. They're just like fan favourite, mega appealing people. Whoever, the joke is, everyone cares about everything but them in the server sometimes, depending on whether you care about the meta or what team they're on, etc. But you can't replace those. So I think LCS gave that up already. They've lost all those personalities. They are just an also-ran league now. They're just essentially like a wildcard region with loads of money. You go and look, LEC still has a chance at that, especially because now they've backdoored into all these local fan bases, like you guys say. To me, it makes it obvious what you should do, which is you should create the schedule around what currently works. The golden goose right now in European League of Legends is having these fucking home stands. Nobody else... Remember, even Riot couldn't figure out how to make the real LCS finals be in a packed out stadium that definitely sells all the tickets and definitely has like fan interest and people are able to go. They haven't, if they can't do that with the product, as in the game itself. Remember, the finals in theory on paper are trying to be like the best, most important game, but you can make a random regular season game pop off like crazy as though it was like fucking MSI or something because it's in a stand in fucking Spain or in France or something. That's the obvious angle you should lean into. And so to me, this ties into what you're saying, SeeEl. If I was them, the first thing I would do is go, let's strip down all this fucking studio nonsense. That's not playing to that angle at all. And spoiler, like I said, it's not like on the other hand it's making us win worlds. Like, if anything, I also think, by the way, if when I look how G2 played at that first homestand, I also think having more homestands and live events will also actually battle test all the rookies way more. Like, that actually in itself will help you have a better chance at an MSI or a world. So to me, the obvious angle, I agree, I would go with like shorter. I'd go with 2 splits. I'd make them short but intense, like you're saying. I would do things like, first and foremost, you have to get that EWC and MSI block and give them time on either side of it. Every region needs like a week or 2 off after that. You can't just do this shit where you go, like the maddest, if anyone doesn't know, is easily like LCK. They just went home and they were playing the same day. It was mental. Like, I've never seen anything like that. Like, they just make those guys fucking just get in the server. Like, there's no complaint, there's no diva shit. You just have to play and just fucking hope you win the game. So to me, it feels like, even though this is like slightly off topic again, it feels like the obvious anglers lean more into that, because right now, whenever you find, as I say, like a golden goose, mate, just fucking milk it. Like, well, get the eggs in this analogy, but like no one had that before. In fact, I will say, if you went back 2 or 3 years, it wouldn't even have been an overly cynical take to say Western League of Legends is probably going to die within the next 5 years, and it'll only be LPL and LCK, because they were the only leagues. If you notice, the hack they have in their region is they can just survive off the game. They have way more people watching and interested, and they have the highest level of game in the world. We can't get away with that in LEC. Last thing I'll say is this. Here's the way I wish people would think in LEC about their teams and the product of LEC. I saw that the NBA, think about how a huge sport the NBA is, American basketball. They said that they don't think of their competitors as like the NFL, the NHL. They said their competitors are stuff like Amazon Prime, YouTube. Because what they've realized is in the modern day, your competitor is just for the eyeballs, bro. It's just what could that fan do instead instead of watching this game? The answer isn't they have to go and watch another sport. They can go watch YouTube shorts, they can go watch someone stream on Twitch. And I think it's the same in esports. Like, surely the other lesson we've learned from things like Cadril and Dom is people aren't watching just for the game. You're also watching for their personality, and that's what's engaging you, isn't it? It's not like the real joke is half the time I feel like I see the clips that pop off the most. It's never the fucking analysis clips. It's never like an amazing point about how the player locked in Jays. It's just someone mouthing of like some really entertaining reaction to a clip, or like, what are we doing? Are we giving up the dragon? Like, that's what people tune in for. That's just streamer behavior. So I also think like we're so close to connecting these things properly, not accidentally by virtue of Carmine Corp being there or Cadril threatening to come in with Lost Tutorial. We should just directly connect these things. Is the obvious angle to go, in my opinion.
That's also actually why I stress the individual streaming part, though, because
Right.
I do think that you get so much more short form content, which is the preferred format across the world right now.
Yes.
And so when you run these tournaments, at max you get a clip from that certain play, but when you have a bunch of individuals, you get an infinitely more amount of clips.
Well, I mean, the joke is, as you say, mate, now they even do that famous highlight style where you take an amazing moment in a match and you show all the different streamers reacting to it, like 15 streamers, you know what I mean? Like the German guy. It's true. Yeah. That's massive, yeah.
That's my point. Like, imagine you have that for all your streamers. If you have, say, 50 streamers that are streaming, every one of them are going to have a highlight clip once a day, for example. You know, they're going to do something that where people will clip and think it's funny. And so nowadays, getting eyes on any platform is actually more about just volume rather than super high quality content. Volume and like a moderate level of content, which is really different from what Pete and I used to from, say, 10, 15 years ago.
Sure.
You know, like long form content is not the king now. So,
no, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think like more games per day. I agree with you completely. I think that format, but I would like longer games and more games, and a lot of more individual like personalities streaming and making content and just flooding YouTube Shorts, flooding TikTok, flooding all these places with a bunch of shorts that make people want to play the game. And here's the thing: when people start playing the game, people watch more too.
Sure. But I mean, I would say
it goes hand in hand.
That there's one big time when that actually happens, right? There's only one time in the entire year where what you're describing happens, which is pre-Worlds boot camp, where everyone is on the super servers, and I mean, I'm sure Riot have the statistics for this, but it's enough just by watching the people like Yamato and Midbeast and people like
tracking the pros and all that shit. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Every single channel spikes. Every single channel.
Yes.
The difficulty is in maintaining that novelty, right, over the course of a year. But I take your point. I agree. Actually, I hadn't thought about that before, but yeah, I agree that especially in that time of the year, you know, maybe Riot should send some teams out that don't qualify for Worlds to go and play in the boot camp, you know?
Also, even though I understand, I am with coaches here, this might not be a popular take, I actually also think not only do we not practice as much in the West, we play way fewer games. Like in the LPL Nelson King, you play like every 2 to 3 days, mate. Like you just always play. There's always a game coming up. I can say as a viewer, that's also really good. Like I'll look at some of these weeks. This is why I thought you originally were just going to complain about this split. If I look at the regular split for this split in LEC, mate, there are some weeks where here's my analogy. I feel like I'm walking through a capital city and I'm looking at the menu outside a restaurant and going, don't think I'll go in there. There's nothing on the menu I want. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know, we just find a menu, like, you're just like, this isn't the plate. It's not my style of food. You know, there's not even a fucking steak on there. Like, that's what some of these weeks look like. I'm just looking down, like, desperately trying to... Is BDS against Heretics a good game? You know, like, I can't do this, boys. And meanwhile, I always say this, I turn on the LPL and it's like every day they're like, and coming up, anyone's legend plays Weibo Gaming into BLG against ES. Like, fucking hell, all right. That's just today. I'm in, mate. So, okay. Anyway, let's move on. That's a massive tangent, as usual. That's what the show is. Peter.
It's a good segue into my point about Heretics. But I will say, Heretics versus BDS next week is going to be a complete shit show. It's going to be fantastic to watch. Because one of those two orgs is going to be like mega.
For sure.
Out of it, let's put it. But because, I mean, like, in a group that had SK Gaming, to miss top 5 into top 4 in a group that has SK Gaming is like
Yep.
is really really rough.
And they just sold their
like,
best player in theory right before the split began.
exactly.
That's
Like I was thinking about making my good point. How good business SK have done.
Right,
By
okay.
selling Picard for 200k. Holy
Sure.
moly. But look. We talked about G2, we talked about Vitality. The less talked about Navi, the better. But like, so that means that if I'm going to pick a bad point from this week, it has to be about Heretics, right? And Heretics' performance was really, really rough against SK Gaming. I mean, like literally, the series against SK Gaming was literally SK playing 4v5, right? Sure, Schemes was kind of playing out of his mind, but Abadage had a really, really rough series, and his KDAs don't look that bad, but frankly, his Galio game is literally him playing badly except pressing R at the right time, which I'm pretty sure he's not calling. And like SK just drafted their Jinx Lulu, and were able to just kind of just win the game off Galio, Jinx, Lulu, and it was filthy to look at. And look, I mean, I've got a wider Heretics point to talk about at some point in the future, I think. But short of going on for an hour, and I'm not. I mean, I think we should wait until seeing how the Heretic split ends, because definitely BDS, they're capable of beating BDS. BDS don't look good either, and I mean, like, frankly, both of these two teams should be doing better. But what I'm going to say about Heretics is, the thing which really disappointed me about their series against SK is about how lifeless they looked in the games that they were losing. And like, the one thing you could say about Heretics last split is that even when they were losing, you always felt that they could come back. You always felt that there was something there, that that they never gave up. They never stopped trying. They never stopped going for all of these like weird picks, and they just looked lifeless in that game against SK, in the third game against SK. And it really, really worries me for next week, because all they had to do was win this series, and then they would lock top 4. Who knows how Vitality or GX will play in a best of 5? I mean, I wouldn't put Heretics as favourite, but I would put them. But you have a chance still. But let me put it this way: for whichever one of BDS or Heretics loses next week, it's a complete disaster of a split. And frankly, I big up Shio instead a lot, because frankly they were carrying this team in spring, but when they don't have those strong games, like everyone who's playing against Heretics knows now, if you shut down Sten, or you shut down Shio, you don't have to shut down both of them, you just shut down one of them. This team is really, really going to struggle to play the game, and it made me sad to see, because obviously there's a lot of people on this team that I want to see success, right? I want Sten to see success. I want Shio to see success. I want Flacken to see success. I really, really like Carlson. Kamilu, I'm kind of ambivalent about, but like, I don't hate him. Like, he's in this situation, not, you're not going to say no. Some team comes to you in LFL2 and offers you like a contract to play in LEC. Like, you cannot hold that against him. And he's improved a lot. He's improved from a very, very low base, but he doesn't look like he's completely out of it. Like, obviously. But what I would say is that this was a very, very disappointing performance from them this week, and it's scary for next week, because BDS, like, who's even going to win this game? BDS versus Heretics.
Plus, I believe
And
Heretics has to like 2-0 or something like that, right? I think they have to
yeah, I know.
specifically win
I
the
think
series.
if they 2-1, they will knock. It depends how SK do. Like,
Right.
I mean, I think SK against G2 next week. G2 are more than capable of throwing a series
Okay.
against SK. To out of the goodness of their heart, because they've already locked top 1 in the group, right? So yeah. But basically, like, these two teams are both playing for their lives next week. I think it's a very interesting series, even though the quality of players is not likely to be the highest, because it's going to mean a lot going into the off season. And I had a point that I was thinking about for this week, talking about like priorities in team building and priorities in scouting and things like this. But actually, given that Heretics, let's see how to judge Heretics winter after they've gone and played against BDS. But what I would say is, we talked about Vitality playing for their lives. Like, I think there's a lot of people in this Heretics roster who are playing for their lives next week, and this, you learn a lot about a team when their backs are against the wall. And we learnt about Vitality this week with their rebound. We're going to need to see a similar rebound from Heretics next week, or sure they came sixth in spring, but like this year has been kind of a rough one. That's what I will say for that.
What do you think?
It's a bit hard. It's a touchy subject for me because I was in that team too with Pete, but Pete's now retired, so he can say what the hell he wants. So he's put me in a spot. Look, what I'll say about Heretics is I really like Naruto Raider. I think we have a personal relationship. I really like Flackett. And Stend is a player that I thought I'd bring into Brazil multiple times last year and a half, 2 years. We spoke a few times actually, and I really liked his profile, at least his potential. And so I would love to see them succeed, but at the moment it does look a little bit difficult. It does look a little bit difficult, and it's the circumstances of the ending for me in Heretics was not like as you know, Pete, not like the best. So it's kind of hard for me to comment on things without being nasty, and I don't think it's a time for me to say it. All I'll say is like, whatever happened, I wish the org still succeeds. I wish
Okay.
that Flackett succeeds because, like Victor, Flackett's one of those guys that he has a tremendous amount of passion for the game. Yeah, and he's a really, really, really likable guy. Hopefully his gameplay is super likable too in this coming series, and they find success.
I mean, you already
Sorry,
nailed it earlier.
I'm not very interesting with this answer.
No, it's
Sorry
the
about
thing. You already
that.
nailed it earlier.
Yeah.
Essentially, what you're doing is teasing your own Peter Dunn. Now I just say whatever I think. Redemption arc when you retire. Where when you retire, obviously, then there'll be the talk to Thorin with SeeEl, where we'll find out all the shit from Morgan and
Mate,
Heretics.
if I do retire, Thorin, mate, I got some stories for you.
Okay.
I got some stories for you.
No, listen, mate, that's one of the best things as well. Is obviously people expect certain people to be really firebrand and outspoken. But I can just imagine Perks waking up that day like, that's interview with Peter Dunn's popping off a bit. What the fuck? Like, listen, it's always the ones you never expect, Peter. It's always the quiet ones that you think are just, the chill guys in the background. You never know. You never know when the claws come out. Who knew the Peter Dunn claws were sharp after all? But that's also because, I will say, if people don't realise, in that particular case, Peter wouldn't really just tell all the story. What he was doing there was he was being the fucking hero, wasn't he? Trying to save the other players' reps that were maybe the splashback and gotten to them, etc. So
that part is true for sure, by the way. Pete glazes me, Pete glazes a lot of people, but I'll be honest, like we are pieces of shit when we worked with him. Like we're a little shit when we're working with him.
Is that I still hold grudges because of what happened to Kaiser and what happened to Trimby, right?
Sure.
Like, I mean, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say about that topic. I think it's been no point going over rough
it's all
ground.
good.
And all I would say about the Heretics issue is, this is a roster that is supposed to develop going into 2026, right? Like, I mean, nobody expects this roster to go towards this year, right? Like, I don't, Heretics may say it in interviews and things like this, but let's be clear, right? You've chosen to promote 3 rookies. You've brought in, you have a new coaching staff. Like, you have, like, this is a long-term project, right? But if your long-term project goes, 8 to 6, that's fine. You're going in the right direction. But you go 8 to 6 to 10, something has to change, right? Nobody is unaware of that, right? So, I mean, I'm going to say that both BDS, because let's be clear, Striker also gave an interview, right, where he went and said that this split, we have to go and compete for Worlds because he made a huge amount of roster changes, right?
Yeah.
For BDS going into next split. So, one of those teams is not going to go to is definitely not going to go to Worlds, right? Because they're going to come 9th, 10th, right? Depending on how you want to, but not in first, right?
Spoiler, none of them are going to Worlds anyway, but don't worry about that, Pete. Keep going.
There's always.
I know, in theory, sure.
Just all you need is a lucky patch in the
And to win about 4 best of 5s in a row, so, but yeah, whatever. It's all good.
You can't imagine BDS. You have nuclear worlds again.
There's no way. Man.
Okay. but look, I mean, some people may look down on a game like that as being, that's not a high caliber game, but I can tell you that there's a lot on the line for games like this, and that will tell you what a player is worth and what people are worth under the pressure, right? And you can't see that in regular season, even in playoffs. Sometimes the it's so imbalanced in playoffs. Like, GX. Okay, bad example. I was going to say, like, Fnatic can play G2 all they want in a best of 5, right? And the Fnatic are never going to beat G2, like, no matter how much. But both sides, from BDS and Heretics, have the capability of winning. And look, it's going to come down, if I had to guess, to one player not being able to hold up their end. And if that's not fascinating viewership fuel, I don't know what is, right? So next week is a big one. And
right, here's the thing. First things first, this is why I actually think, but I think Heretics fucking suck, bro. Because the worst thing is, their arc is terrible too. Like, they began the year, I think everyone looked at their roster and was like, this is a bit cynical, or you've gone the cheap. In fact, the joke is you've done an SK gaming roster. This doesn't look like a roster that. Remember, they've coming off years in the past where you can say what you like about the roster. At least they had big names, They had like VTO, they had fucking Yankos, they had fucking Perks. These are huge names. You're at least going for like big names angle, if not good players. The problem with this one is you didn't even get the big names that people wanted. These aren't even the hyped rookies. And then also, some of the players you've got are just like, the joke is actually the ones you sort of end up smurfing on were people like SeeEl, but I don't even know why that was available. I don't even know who the fuck was putting that player on the table and going like the pawn stars. Like, what can I get for this? Like, fucking everything, you idiot. Why are you giving that piece away? So our problem is this. If you look at the 3 splits, in winter, they kind of were what I just described. They were a bit of a mess. Like, the roster didn't really come together. There were clearly massive holes in it. But the real reason it's such a bomber that they suck now is because in spring, they had like a crazy glow up. Like, that actually was legit. Like, there were times where if they'd have had a little bit more from the solo laners, they would have just straight up beaten some of the best teams in the league. Like, that was real. And as Peter alludes to, a lot of that was from the fact that, like, they miraculously ended up with this fucking amazing jungle support duo that actually, ironically, was probably like top 3 or 4 in the league. Like, actually a really good setup. So the problem comes down to, this is why though, you can't, in the same way as they say, like, you can't, like, it's something like you can't outwork a bad diet. Like, even if you have like good exercise, if you have bad diet, it'll still get to you. You can't really outrun bad scouting. And unfortunately, you absolutely did, no matter what anyone says and no matter how much, you did doom this roster when you signed Camilo, unfortunately. Because even, like, I actually think Carlson has been dragged into all that shit because of how many games they've lost. He could have been all right if you'd have had like either like a veteran mid who was just good, or you tried a different rookie that was like skilled. The problem with the Camilo one is that's probably the craziest reach I've ever seen in the LEC. Because if you do go, like I say, Peter, you go down to LFL2 and get the player, you have to be a genius scouter. That guy has to end up being like either he either has to have like crazy talent in the game, or he actually just ends up needs to be really good, because you've gambled the whole squad on what in the history of our region is the most important position, mid lane. So I think that is the bomber. And then here's why I have to go hard on Heretics this particular week, because notice how not a single person in this call picked anything about SK as their good point. Because it wasn't that SK even played that well. I'll say this, the jungler played well, the aforementioned Skeins. Abadagi still just looks like a fucking, like a corpse, mate. It's not even like he carried the game or anything. Like, that's how bad the fucking Heretics players played. And by the way, if you ever wanted to do that roster breakdown I just did, this was the week to hit on the fucking solo laners, mate. Like, the joke is they got completely countered by the existence of Gwen, as far as I can tell. Like, they would play like fucking, this is like some shit back in the LCS where people didn't know what to do against champions when they just came in the game. Like, what is this? Like, I can't even believe how bad that game was. It was fucking whack, mate. Abadaga wasn't even good. It wasn't like he carried the games or anything. So I think it's just sad. What a waste of the jungle support.
If this was winter, it would be nothing, right? I would just be like writing off for rookies. But these guys are not rookies. I mean, they're rookies, but they're literally like 2, almost 3 splits now, right? Rookies, and you just expect more, right? Yeah, that's all.
And as I say, because in the end, the jungle support aspect ended up being better than expected. Now it just feels like a wasted opportunity. I think of all the other teams in the league, if I pop that jungler support in, we're cooking it. We'll go to Worlds, like we'll mix it up a bit. I also do think, the player I feel the most sorry for this whole fucking year is SeeEl. He's the most fucking elo-held player in the whole league. Like, move aside, Carzzy. Now it's fucking SeeEl's turn to have that role, mate. There you go.
Holy cow.
Right, now speaking of flaming people, inflaming people who are French. Now we can go to my bad point. Do you know what? I'm actually, in many ways, SeeEl, this is why this show works. I am actually the reverse Peter Dunn. I am the dark side of Peter Dunn. And maybe we're in some ways like the British psyche. He's got like, the optimism, the cheerio, mate. Yeah, maybe it all can work out. Up, tip top. And I'm the guy that's like, yeah, the fucking economy. This country's gone to the dogs. Yeah, it's pretty all. There's no future. The kids don't respect the adults. I'm that British boomer, So here's where I'm going to do my masterclass in that, Peter, because I'll tell you the person I'm actually going to pick as bad. In the same way as you wait for your chance to pick someone to be good, I actually do purposely wait for players I think are really good. And if they have the bad week, you reward people for playing well. I punish the players that I really like when they have a really bad week. And I'll tell you someone, despite what fans might think, I am actually a really big fan of Caliste. I think he's so fucking talented at this game. It's why I even get why they went way too far with all the hype, where they sort of made it sound like he was like the greatest League of Legends player ever. And by the way, the reason if you're a fan in the LEC why that doesn't work is that actually happened in Counter-Strike, if you don't know. We had a rookie who might just be the best player to ever play the game. Like, Caliste is not that. He's not even the best European player to ever play the game. But I tell you what, he is really talented, and he has a level of genius to how he plays the game. And I actually even think sort of like his sort of drive to be excellent in the game. I can see it all there. I can see the same things I saw from people back in the day, like Forgiven and Upset, and these players where they actually have like an earned arrogance of like, oh, I can be even better than this. But I'll tell you what, this week was a nightmare week if you're a Caliste fan. Like, holy fuck. Look, I will say, on the other side of the server, yes, you had a great performance by Carzzy, and Vitality were kind of better than expected. Even the macro aspects were good, but fucking hell. Caliste, it's one of the only times I've ever seen where I actually felt like he was like solo losing games, bro. Like, he was doing some really fucking bad players. I'll tell you the player in their team I do feel bad for. It's fucking Canna, mate. This guy just can't get a break. Like, he's on some like ice shit where it's like, no matter what I do in the game, you guys just fuck it up. This is like some nightmare solo queue draft like you guys about server. So everyone's already focused elsewhere because of the drama on Vladdy or, Yike picking his Vi. Everyone knows all those angles. I get it, right? But I actually think because he is the golden boy of KC, people don't want to have to flame Caliste. But I think this last week he had an ass week, boys. I think this was fucking terrible. And I know he is so much better than this as well. I've seen this guy fucking smurf for like international talent. So this was just a bad one. This is one where, you have to remember he is a rookie and this was a fucking rookie ass game, mate. Yeah. Thoughts, SeeEl?
Honestly, I'm not sure if it's just tied to Caliste. I'll be honest with you. Just looking at their game, I don't think that this weekend his performance was the best. I agree with you, but the problem seems to be a little bit wider spread. Like, you can tell some signs of that when they change their mid laner, no? Like, when they bring in a substitute. So for me, this is how I see K-Corp and Caliste. When any team brings on Nisqy, okay, there's something wrong. Why? Nisqy is the Fireman of League of Legends. He will come to your team.
That's the thing.
Look at all the fires. Yep. Turn out a bunch of fires and tell your team how to play the game. So there's something wrong going. Like, I don't know the details. I don't know. I know nothing. I haven't spoken to them in a while, but I think that when the environment goes bad, that's when rookies really struggle. When a lot of things are going on around them. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't have as much hate in my blood. I haven't done esports long enough, I'll be honest with you, Thorin. Okay. I don't have as much hate in my blood to come in here, guns blazing. I like their Calm Core project. I like the players. I like Caliste. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe they can't agree on a way to play the game. They need someone that's willing to drop a move, give resources, and make the game function. So they brought in another guy. Either as
someone who could play Sivir. Either way.
Yeah, Sivir, basically Sivir mid, like some braggers. Sure. Go down. Because like here's what K-Corp is saying. Because Nisqy's a player I respect a lot. I actually thought about bringing him to Brazil. I actually asked him this off season, before I got Miru. They're saying we have enough star power. Because let's be honest, Nisqy, I love you, mate, if you're watching, but you're not a star. They have enough star power that if we have a facilitator, a glue in this team, we can win. That's what they're saying. At least to me when I see,
Yeah.
They're saying I have Caliste, and I have Canna, and I have Yike. We can win. We just need you to make the team function.
Yes.
So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? I don't have as much hate in my blood.
Oh, so KC. So first thing I'll say about this is I don't believe that the KC players believe that Yike can play Vi. And I think that the fans definitely don't believe it.
Okay.
But I think that basically they stomped Vitality game one. Kana had like another fantastic game, and then they picked Vi game two as an ego pick. It didn't work out, and then they were like, "Oh, it doesn't matter. We can just ego pick against this bad team." And then game three, we're just going to outskill them, right? Like that's what it looked like happened. Because let's be clear, Yike is really bad on Vi, and I don't know how to explain this. And I don't care what his KDA is.
Sure.
Like his flank angles are bad. The way that he his understanding of his limits on the champion is bad. Frankly, everyone knows he's bad on this champion. They just keep picking it. It's almost like a fuck you, like make this. We're gonna show that he's not bad on this champion, or he's saying I'm not bad on this champion. Let's go and pick it, and he just is. Okay, there's no shame in it, right? Like there's champions that even Faker can't play like at a really high. Like I mean, he can play them, but he can't play them at like a level that you can pick into HLE or Genji, right? And like this to me feels like what happened this week, right, in the series, right? Let's be clear, like you're forcing this on your players, right? So that's bad. That's going to throw them off. And let's be clear, like Caliste was pushed his limits way too far, trying to overcompensate. And in game three, Carzzy just like murdered him, right? And like, frankly, sorry,
don't you think their draft was just ass though?
In game two or game three?
Game two. I'm looking. I mean, because I forgot about it, but I looked at it again, and it looks really bad. I'll be honest. I mean, they did Jace, Vi, Annie, 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's not normal, by the way. That's really
No, I agree with you. Like, I mean, I agree with you, and I mean, I think that basically they didn't either they're trying to prove a point, or they didn't take this draft seriously, or they are actually delusional about the level of their players on this specific combo, right? Like, I don't know what it is, right? I don't know whether it's a coaching problem. I don't know whether it's a Yike problem saying, trust me, I can really, really play this champion, right? I don't know if it's a compositional meta understanding problem. Like I just don't know, right? So it's hard for me to judge.
For me, it just looks like it's Canna. That's what it looks like to me. Like I don't know why he would blind Jace here. The enemy pick Rise Jarvan, and he just blinds Jace.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, I mean, but maybe I'm delusional,
It's Korean Jace privilege.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in his contract as a Korean in the West. He's allowed to pick Jace anytime. At any moment.
He's done this more than once. And it makes no sense. Like theme wise, like if LS saw this, he would probably faint. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, and then obviously, then Yori comes in. Oh yeah, it's a rough Jace game.
I mean, like, why would you pick this? It makes no sense with your theme too. You're like going forward, Annie, Vi, and then just a random Jace.
No, I think that's fair. But I think in game three, frankly, like this is the one you can hold. Like game two, I don't really. I agree with you. I think the Jace. I think if you're Genji, you can pull off the game two comp. But like the game three comp is on Caliste to carry. He's a Sivir. He's got a Karma next to him. Like enemy team has very, very limited threat on him. Sure, it's not the easiest to play Sivir into Orianna, but like he has everything you could possibly want as a Sivir to carry this game, and the enemy has a fucking Pyke as their support, right? Like, I mean, this is on him to carry, and I think he just overpushed his boundaries and he got punished, right? And you can go and say, for me, I'm gonna be the positive side to this, Thorin, which is I'm going to say I like that he's pushing his limits, but maybe I'm not going to like that he's pushing his limits if, well, I mean, they've locked top two, but let's say Vitality or Koi win 2-0, and then they have to play G2 for Worlds in the form that G2 look right now. Maybe that wasn't the time to push your limits and not the team to push your limits against.
I thought in the game three, Vladdy just ran it.
Yeah, true. But I mean, Caliste ran it too. Like, do you think Caliste was overcompensating for Vladdy running it?
I just think that in the game, they have no damage. Like they have. I mean, I think it's like a Wukong Sivir two-man carry comp. I mean, I guess Na could carry too, but like who's frontlining like creating space for this Sivir? I think it's not easy. But I do think that he entered too. Yeah, I mean, for sure, like
Put it
none
this
of these
way,
guys played perfectly.
I know
right?
what you mean, Peter. Like I do accept it because it's actually one thing that earlier in the year, especially the first two splits, that's what everyone loved about Caliste is that he actually was like egoing, like Hans Sama and shit like that, and fucking Jackie Love, etc. Like he was trying to actually like pixel perfect outplay these motherfuckers, which is dope. But the problem is that's only cool when it works. Like when it doesn't, then it's like some fucking Neymar Ronaldinho. Like it looks awesome when you like flick the ball over someone's head and then it's got. If you just like lose the ball, then they score. You look like an idiot, don't you? That's the downside to that
fair
style.
too.
Yeah, that's the
fair
downside.
I mean, that's the Carzzy. That's the story of Carzzy's life. Like
Yeah.
nobody remembers.
No.
The 8 times out of 10 that
Yes.
that he actually did the outplay, but the 2 times out of 10 where he ran it,
Yes.
you're never gonna forget. So yeah,
We're aligned. He messed up.
he did this. That's fair.
And also, if you're going to call this guy like the little prince of esports, well, guess what? The royalty get more scrutiny. The tabloids are going to be all over you. That's how we work here, Anyway,
Should be, yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. What in the ugly section? SeeEl, what is ugly right now in League?
I think that talent development's a huge problem. Like, if you want, my strong belief is that we're running out of a new generation of players. It's kind of scary to see, like in NA it's just dead. I'm sure you would agree. And in EU, I think they killed the regional league so much. It's not possible to get a solid living earning wage in the ERLs anymore. That's a fact. So, I heard some of these salaries, like I had a player from Australia, an old student of mine that decided to come back and try hard. He joined Ramboot Club. Some of these guys are earning below 1.5K.
I believe the coach on last week, which is the guy Hayes from one of the Venom Crest or whatever they're called in the NLC, said some NLC players get no salary at all.
So yeah, exactly. So if I had to be toxic, I mean, thing is, NLC is content, right? But I'm talking even in the major.
Oh right,
regions
even in like LVP
expect,
or something like that, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Like
right.
The way that I see it is that to be toxic, the older generation of players are just better. They just are. Like I can't think of a single player that's anywhere remotely close to a Nemesis, for example, or like gives hints of Nemesis. I'll be honest. I don't see a new caps coming anytime soon. League improvement in general, like knowledge being passed down. People are just not incentivized to pass down knowledge like they used to be. Salaries are not going up anymore. People are not staying in the scene. People are not coaching. A lot of the older players, we know Selfmade, for example, is a problem child, right? We know that he created a lot of problems when he was a player. But we also know that he probably has a shit ton of knowledge that 90% of the junglers just don't have.
Sure.
And that knowledge is not being passed on because there's no incentive to coach.
Yes.
So I just think that talent development from the ERLs being killed, from coach salaries going down.
But it's SeeEl. I will say, to echo your point and add to it, if people don't know, that's actually the part. It's because, unfortunately, in other regions, we don't get a lot of interviews with coaches, so people don't know. But I always tell people, if you ever go and look at the LCK, almost every team is coached by like the most famous junglers and supports that ever play in the region. If you look at any classic Dandy, Matt, they're all there. They all coach all those. Same with the LPL, by the way. It's all the old ex-players. Yeah, you're right.
Imagine you press tab and you're in Genji, and your new generation of player is like Chovy, and your coach is like Score, Mata. Like you're gonna learn a lot about the game.
Agreed.
And it is so incredibly sad. I'll be completely honest myself. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not at the level where I'm gonna know more about the game than some of these top players. At least in terms of these micro interactions. What I'm really good at is managing people. I think I'm solid at understanding, or at least in my way, with people that work well with me, and I'm good at understanding how people tick and what ticks well, what champions tick well with certain people. But I'm not going to be able to go in and break down these specific micro interactions and all these little tricks that add a lot to the game, and that's where you need the older generation to come in and teach. So across the board, I think the state of the coaching scene is quite horrible from what I've seen from some of these coach profiles, from the interviews that I've conducted, from mentoring people. The ERLs are dying slowly because the people are finding it really hard to monetize them. Please legalize gambling. And people are finding it, extremely difficult to find incentives to teach the next generation of people. And on top of all of this, the entire ecosystem is stalling. You're not getting a new generation of players like we did back then, you know. So it is looking bleak. I remember Selfmade made a tweet. He was like, "The older generation is just better," and one of the times I actually agree with him. You know, I think that
It's also a
like
very
how
self-made
amazing
tweet. I love it. Okay.
yeah, how amazing would it be if Perks looked at his bank account, sure, he's got gajillion dollars, he's got a pretty wife, doesn't need to work again, but decides, you know what, I'm gonna give back to the game, I'm gonna come back and teach some kids how to play the game.
I mean, he has a new kid, but like after the
Yeah, but the thing is like he probably has so much he doesn't have to worry about that anymore, and but coaching is super stressful. And people in esports are 1 million times worse than traditional athletes. That's a fact. Because they are immature, they come straight out of high school, a lot of them, and they have no idea how to deal with people, how to behave like a human being. And so, so sometimes you need to be way stricter in ways, and that's a very, very stressful job, right? And so, yeah, it's just a shame, and I do think that uh, talent development is dying, and it's really, really ugly, and it's having profound consequences across the board. It's less new names, less new players. It's just sad, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think also like you see a lot of the old guys who come back, they come in and fill in positional coaches, right? For positional
Yeah,
coaching, you can do it
yeah,
part time. Like
yeah,
Alfari, Broken Blade is talking about how Alfari helped him improve his laning phase. Odo, position coaches on Los Ratones.
yeah. Odo works for us too.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, he does it with lots of different teams. I've spoken to other coaches. I'm not sure how comfortable some of these guys are in me talking about
Being
it, but I
mentioned,
know
yeah.
some coaches who like they position coach one team in multiple regions, so there's no conflict of interest. So I know that there's some people who do that, and that is the way to that people are passing on their knowledge. They're doing like a 1 day of position coaching in NA, one week in 1 day in Europe or 2 days in Europe, and then one in
But for me,
Brazil.
that's nowhere near enough. Like I want to see a
Sure.
generation of players that go in and head coach a team, you know. And but people realize they come in, they do it, and they're like, "This sucks.
Yep.
This really sucks." Like
Oh, that's
now
right.
they understand us, you know. Like
Like it's as you know, like that's when we were
yeah,
on Heretics together. Like that was supposed to be our third
yeah,
coach, right? But like that is the like people like that aren't in the scene. I mentioned the thing about Perks. I think Perks would be a really good head coach. But like the one that to me that kind of got away is Wonder, right? Like obviously Yankos is
Kure.
well. I mean, Kire may do some positional coaching on some teams. I don't want to really talk about that. I know what
Okay,
Kiri's
oh,
up to.
okay.
Kiri is kind of happy with his life. But what I would say is that like let's say like yeah like if this was in Korea, Wonder would be an assistant coach on a team somewhere, right? I mean it's that simple,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm
But
pretty sure he wants to still play. That's why. That's
you
my
think so?
understanding.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
that's my
maybe that makes
understanding.
sense, right? But
Yeah,
but obviously, like these guys, I would hope that they would be the ones who would want to be the next head coaches. But if you think about it, which players in the West have gone on and like have sustained careers as head coaches? It's Mithy and Nuke.
Smiley
Okay,
will though.
Smiley will, right? But it's basically
Yeah,
Mithy and Nuke Duck on Flagmas, right?
yeah,
I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
yeah, and they're successful.
Yeah, and it's successful, but I mean, like, also, they don't give up on it, right? Like after
Yeah,
one year.
exactly.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head as head coaches, right? Not as position coaches, not as anything
Yeah.
else. It's just those two. And I've talked to various players about this because obviously that's something that interests me. Like in because that's one of the big strengths I thought about the ERLs. That it was a good way to develop coaches, and they just all the salary caps have been put on, right? Like literally, I will tell you. Is this public knowledge? Let's say there is a very low salary cap that the LVP has that they have put in place, right? It was voted on by 8 out of the 10 teams. 2 teams voted against. I'm not going to say which teams, but it should be very obvious which two teams voted against. But if you have a very strict salary cap, you're going to spend 95% of that on your players, and then what money of that is left for a coach, right? So that means that the only way that you can earn a living salary as a coach is to work in LEC, and even then, sometimes some of the salaries that third coaches and things like that.
I can say this. The minimum as an LEC assistant coach, not head coach, is probably around 5K a month, like 6K, 60K euros, right?
Yeah,
But you're living in Germany.
yep.
So you got to be realistic here. You're not stacking real life skills. Like most people aren't like me, where they're looking at being an entrepreneur and building like value and stuff like this. They're just doing their league thing, 5K a month, 40% taxes with health insurance in Germany.
Sure, the rent's not going to be cheap either. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff.
Even if the team covers the rent,
Right.
even if you're blessed and you cover the rent, sounds great, right? Okay, how about after 3 years? What do you do with your life?
Sure.
And so it's just not possible, you know. It's unless you're an apex tier person and a coach. So it's really just for the passion. And I'll be honest, you're not just gonna get top talents just from being passionate. And there are gonna be people that are smart enough to realize, even if they're really passionate about what they do, this is not a career path that I can realistically pursue. And that's so sad.
Yes.
And I say this even as like a, I don't think I've been one of the worst paid coaches in my life, but like if I could go back 9 years and go and say to myself, should I do this for my career in esports, I would be like, no, what the hell are you doing? Just literally go and finish your PhD and go like live a normal life, like you'll earn more money like over the
Yeah, but it was worth it for you, Pete. And you've been
like,
looked after.
financially, it's not worth it. It wasn't worth it over the course. Like it wasn't worth it over my 9 years, like for sure.
If you average it out, I guess so. I understand. Because the early years were really.
My friends from university, and I see how much they're earning this year. And let me put it this way: their career earnings only go up after the age of 38. Whereas mine like only go down. But like what I would say, and and I consider myself one of the lucky ones. I got in at the right time. I've been fortunate to be head coach on like a number of teams. But like people coming in now as assistant coaches, trying to work their way up, like holy moly. Like I mean, it's difficult.
And money speaks. It's not bullshit, Like you guys have to realize that we're human beings. Like coaches are human beings. So you say, okay, you get to play a video game and earn 60K. Yeah, okay. Have you thought about the opportunity cost from the perspective of a coach? Because I definitely have, even before I joined. I told myself that I would not go professional if I didn't make it in 1 year in Oceania, because I knew the opportunity cost. And even now, if I'm not on track to be a top 2, top 3 coach in the West, then I'm not going to be in a good position financially. That's a fact. That's an absolute fact. I'm going to be in trouble.
I would just say, go on.
At least as a player, you get the glory and you get the fan adoration. Yeah,
and player salaries too. I mean, if you make it,
of course.
But as a coach, you get almost no positives and just negatives. I'm telling you that. Holy moly.
No, the other thing that annoys me as well is I actually also feel like the reason people who are great players who no longer play at the top level or at all aren't actually entering a pipeline and becoming coaches is because, as you say, there are so few examples. It's just not something they think of as the next step in their career. I can tell you, they clearly do in the LPL and LCK just think that is what you do the second you stop being a pro player. In fact, you notice a lot of the coaches tend to be someone who they already had under contract. He just got replaced as like the top laner or something, and then the next year, they just keep him on the squad as like an assistant coach, or they start as a positional coach. The other problem as well is, even when you are a great player, you just get told like, oh, hey, you saw us like one of the most brilliant minds to ever play top. You could just be our top lane positional coach. It's like that. What's that? What ambition does he have from that role? You know what I mean? If, in my opinion, if you even bring him in as positional coach, it should be more like you'll start as positional coach because that's where you can have the most immediate impact. But you'll move to like full assistant coach in a year, hopefully. And then in 2 years, I hope you lead the whole project. It's your team. Because I agree, when you look at the LPL and LCK, even if they start as assistant coaches, it is incredible the amount, like I said, if you go and look right now in the LCK at the coaching staff, it's basically like season 3 to season 9, like the all fucking LCK, like I said, you notice it is certain positions, it tends to be jungle and support. Those players have just been so immersed in that side of the game and the macro and understanding the concepts like jungle pathing and support timers, etc., that like it is clear that not only are they like, there's 2 angles that it works on. One, they have real experience that we're talking about to pass on, but then 2, they still, their hands might not be there, but they still have the same mind to work out that part of the game today. Whereas I do think the problem we have in the West is we do, all of our coaches are just super boffins. They're just people who never played the game, but they just watched 1 billion VODs, which, by the way, has its own charm and its own flair. But I do think another part that's also mad underrated, if you can ever get those great players through the door, is in the same analogy as like if I'm looking the team who I've got as my player and then who my coach is. it's also the amount of buy-in if you are Matter and you open your mouth, as opposed to the guy who knows more than Matter, but he's just a nerd that was watching Ford. So it's way harder to get that buy-in from Chovy than it is if you Matter. You know what I mean? Like you just bring a certain level of like, go on, what are you going to say?
No, I fully agree. But also like the there's also implied in what you're saying, Thorin, is like the loyalty that orgs show towards their players, right?
Yeah.
Like I mean, the one example that I always like to give is the example of Zeta and Kid, who were like for years on IG, right? But when they got replaced by the Jackie Love rookie generation, those guys, there was no question whatsoever that IG were going to like leave these guys in the dust. You know, these are players who played for them from the age of 14 until 21, 22, right? And like immediately you're hired, we find something for you because you've given the club something, so we give you something back, right? And I would say that from the perspective of Western orgs, the loyalty to players, you know, if you can even get somebody who's 5%, 10% better, you that player goes to the side. And that's the
thing. That's my dream too. Like I want to retire in an organization, but I know realistically it's not possible.
Yeah,
it's just not possible.
Yeah, it's just, and you know, fans will say, oh, you know, this cutthroat way is like the best way. You're not good enough. Just get out, right? But no, that's not like that's the reason why, right? Like it's because how many players do you have find themselves leaving an org on good terms in the West?
And the other thing that I want to add to what Thorin said is like if you're not an ex-pro player and you're coaching, you have way less of a margin of error, no matter how accomplished you are. You can be the best coach in the world. You can slip up 3 or 4 times and that trust will not be there.
Yes.
Right? They'll be like, okay, this guy's a clown. If you're Mata and you are a clown for like 2 years, it doesn't matter. You can just spawn out of nowhere in China and they'll be like, oh, this is Mata, you know? And so that's why in one of our talk shows or like interviews maybe we did, Thorin, I told you like I think 99% of the player population, coach population is going to be replaced within 10 years. This is already 3-4 years back. It's already happening. But I'm in the West. The problem is not enough of them. For me, not enough of them. I remember I was brainwashing Smiley since 2021. You know, I was telling him the dream, and we don't have enough of that from coaches. I was telling Smiley, mate, I'll be honest with you. Your chance to make LEC and be a top player was a couple years ago. All right, you fucked that up. Okay, you can continue. Maybe you make it to a middle bottom tier team, but you're not going to be a top tier player. I'll be honest with you, Ben. I love you, but I'll be honest with you. But you can be a top tier coach. You have all the qualities. You're a leader. Come here. Be a coach with me. I told him in 2021, come coach with me and take my spot. You'll be better than me, you know? And he didn't listen to me. He did his own thing. We worked together for another year, made a final in Brazil. And then I retired him early this year because I was just realistic with him. Your earnings potential with all these ERLs going to shit is just not going to be there. Your best chance is to plan ahead and be a coach. And I don't think enough people are selling this dream that they can be better because they're going to protect their own jobs. That's not what I'm about. You know, I want Smiley to be better than me. I want him to overtake me in less than a year. I want him to go to a better team and earn his stacks and be a head coach. That's the dream you have to sell, not just be a position. Don't just be loyal to me. I don't want any of that shit, you know? And I think that's what a lot of these players were missing too. They don't have the motivation. They don't see the financial upside. I can sell him the financial upside because I can show him, you know, how much coaches can earn. So it is a bit sad across the board.
And then 2 quick things. One is that I also think the other bomber for me is even when people tried these roles, that's what I was saying, they never really had it, like you're saying, as like, that's like the next chapter of my career. They were like, right, I'll do it for like a year, or I'll do it because like I know the head coach, or I used to work with this guy, so I can give a little bit of advice to this rookie. They don't do it as in like, this is really my next career, and I'm going to become the head coach one day, and I'm going to have like a 15-year esports career. It wasn't just, you know, the 5 years I played. Because I think of like the old ones, like you're picking people now who could retire, like wonder it's let's take the ones who were fully retired. Bro, if you'd have told me, like in 2015, that when we go 10 years later, the LEC won't be like N-rated coaching versus Mythy coaching versus like, what? What have we done? And those players are all retired and none of them are head coaches. Like, what have we done? What the fuck have we done? Like, we only have the VOD watchers. Like, listen, again, it's a style of coaching. There are brilliant football coaches that were never top players, but you also want some of the like legendary figures too. I also, because I know what you mean, by the way. The problem you have is this. I'll phrase it this way, SeeEl. If you're Matter, I'd say it's more like you can say 9 things that they don't even think are right. But if you say the one that's right, their brain goes, he's still got it. Mata still got its Mata. But there's a certain type of player where even if you've literally won the championship before they got there, the second you make one wrong comment after the 9 right comments, they're waiting to say you were a fraud, or I knew it wasn't really him. It was just like Caps that carried that game. So yeah, that's the difference. If you're not like the ex-pro, there's a certain type of player wants to always be more right than you, and you can never be on their level on some case, which also, by the way, sadly is the thing of the West. It's a bit immature. I'll tell you what, they're definitely not doing that in LCK teams. I'll tell you right now. So there is that.
Here's what I know also. These players have really bad life habits. They just do. The majority of them do. Sure. Because when you look at football or traditional sports in general, you go through a really long talent development process and a pipeline. I'm sure you agree, Thorin.
Yeah.
Like you get built into the idea of how to be an athlete. And that's a big part of my coaching philosophy, changing the human itself. But you really just don't have enough of that. So naturally in traditional sports, you're going to have people that are more accustomed and know how to speak like a human, how to read the room, how to control the room, how to be a leader, because they go through that pipeline, even if they're maybe not the best player, and in esports they don't have that, so they get shock therapy. They can't want anymore, right? Just people are just not going to respect you, right? You're not a player anymore, and they do the coaching thing. They're like, holy shit. And so that's why I really think it's important for the generation of coaches that know how to deal with people, that know how to speak, to teach the next generation and to encourage players to coach, not just the financial and everything else, And that's what's really missing. For example, Perks. Who has told Perks, come be a coach. I'm going to teach you how to be a human being. I'm going to teach you how to lead humans.
Okay, I push back on this a little bit. Like, there's some players, though, that wouldn't be willing to sit for a year and be an assistant coach because their egos as players would have,
Right.
For sure. You know what? Perks is a bad example. But to be honest, pause. Time. To be honest, I also think that, Pete, I'm gonna give Perks the benefit of that. Say he worked with you a little bit longer than what happened in Heretics.
Sure.
Because he worked with you 2 months?
Yeah.
Say someone back in 2018, 2019 grabbed someone, said, when you finish playing, you should coach. Come with me. Just do it for half a year, and take your own project. I think maybe it would have changed his mind somehow, I just don't think that exists, I don't think that exists enough, because a lot of these paycheck stealers, they only care about their job, Whereas I know that what these coaches should be doing, these head coaches should be doing, is they should be aiming for management positions.
Yep.
That's how I see myself. I want to be the best coach in the world, and maybe in 5, 6, 7 years, pass the torch on to people that are better than me across the years, generate a lot of new coaches, and then I want to manage an organization.
By the way, this is also tying into sports. You also want someone where the idea is one day you won't be the coach, you'll be the general manager, the technical director. Yeah, that's another thing. You can show the joke should be eventually, the dream should be to remain from G2. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm a business major. I'm an entrepreneur. I really believe that this is an important path for me. So I don't feel scared about Smiley coming in and taking my job. If he's better, then he's better.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting that you mentioned the GMing thing, right? Because the pipeline from coach to GM is non-existent. How many coaches do you know that went from coach to GM, right? And
I tried.
It's why, if you notice, Peter, it's not that there was really great coaching and all the players played great the last 3 years of LEC, but it's why, if you notice, so many of the people who are the content creators or the co-streamers like me have focused so much on the GM angle for LEC, Peter, because the problem is that is seen at the moment as actually the safest position in esports, which is mad, because I can tell you from other sports, they will ruthlessly fire you if you fuck up a massive football team or basketball squad. You might not even they might even tell you get the 5-year plan and you get fired on year 3. The problem is in esports, the perception is the GM himself just fires the coach and the players, and then he doesn't ever carry the blame. But I know what you mean. That should actually be the ultimate level of attainment and responsibility.
Yep. I think that my mindset is that I'll be exceptional to the point where someone will accept me eventually. And the only interview that I got, real interview that I got, where I got a real opportunity, was with Papa Smithy in FlyQuest. I actually did a GM interview with them after Heretics. But Andrew got it. I was a second. So there was a chance, And there's not many people like that that'll give opportunities like that. I think what I know for certain is Crepo got the GM spot in
SK.
in SK, and he's really down low nowadays. I think you should GM too, Pete. You know, like after a bit, after your kids maybe grown up a bit and you have some time. You know, I personally think that we need to make this pipeline better, but then all owners also need to be advised correctly.
Yeah.
That's the really, I think the first generation of org owners, a lot of them are still around, and they are surrounded by the first generation of people that were there from the beginning, and they are, let's be real, they're not the most professional.
Of course.
They're not aware, and that's just all of this that's happening right now is just a consequence that traditional sports has probably already gone through once.
Here's the thing, you've planted the seed. Don't worry. This show and watching League of Legends for the next, I'd say, 3 years is going to water the seed. And then you have to understand, as soon as his kid goes to school and then he has that little bit of extra time and he hasn't actually become like, a fucking gardener or whatever hobby he should take up, that itch will start again. And then he'll be like, what if I was
I already...
He'll convince himself that being GM means it's not the same as being the coach. You don't have to go to the studio every day. He'll find some weird backdoors way. He'll definitely be the GM of a team, at least an ERL team, if not an LEC team. I can tell. I know it's in the future. It is your destiny, Pete. You can't escape it. You can't.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like...
Essentially, being a GM is calling for Peter every year more and more, like that fucking Green Goblin mask calls to fucking Willem Dafoe in the Spider-Man movies. He's just looking at like, exactly. But what if I was the GM, though? What if I could recruit Stend? That's what he's thinking every week.
Do I talk about Sten that much?
It's just like your secret pet one where it's like you just like him a bit too much compared to... You like him more than Heretics do, put out way, so... Right, okay. What is your ugly point then, Peter?
My ugly point. Okay, so my ugly point this week is basically... So I heard this from Toad Amarillo, who's like one of the Spanish... I guess content creators is the word, analysts, I guess, who I follow a lot, right? Which I was really confused, like there was a confusion about the tiebreakers, right? And like I thought that some article was wrong, but it turns out that I just misread the rules myself. Okay. And about Na'Vi being eliminated, right? Because there is a thing in the tiebreaker which says 4th place and 5th place will always play a tiebreaker, no matter what. Except in this very specific circumstance. Right. And what he told me, which was fascinating to me, is Na'Vi didn't even realize they were playing for relegation, for like elimination, until they saw the graphic themselves on the broadcast.
Fucking hell.
Which just goes to show how I don't blame Na'Vi for this, because I'm like a rules lover. You know, like I love to read rules. Okay. I love to read regulations. You know, like this stuff is the stuff which gets me interested, because I love to think about the worst case, 3-way, 4-way tie scenarios. How are you going to go and fix this? It sounds weird. Everyone has their own kink, but like what I'm going to say is that they've done such a bad job of like nobody fully understands this format going into this year. And like it needs to be easier to understand, right? Like, if even your teams aren't understanding it, there is a problem, and people will... It's so easy to shit on Na'Vi, right? Like, in this kind of case. But how many fans realistically can tell you every single tiebreaker rule, right? Even in situations where things were easier, people don't really understand the rules. And I think that is a problem, right? And that's my ugly point for this week. Okay. It's like, we shit on the format, but like, it's not even clear that the teams understand what's going on, right? So that's a really bad situation.
What do you think, SeeEl? Yeah,
I would completely agree with Pete. I don't think it's just on Navi's. Like, I mean, actually... Honestly, Pete, if you go 0-6, you deserve to be out. I'll be honest.
Sure, I mean,
I'm not excited for this team being in, but yeah, no, I agree with Pete completely.
No, but here's the thing. I know what he means. Like, first of all, it is just incredible. Like, imagine being a fly on the wall. I don't know if they actually were recording it, but if you were, you know what? You're brand new to the LEC. Listen to the first half of the podcast. Actually, content carries this motherfucking region. We're going to beat Chovy and win Worlds. So please release the video of like, and then have the Curb Your Enthusiasm music play when your own players realise, like, shit, are we eliminated? Like, what are we playing for next week for then? Like, and I'm not even on the team next year. Like, it's why I notice everyone's pointing out that Thega guy guy. Like, it's fucking mental, isn't it? Like, he came up for like 3 series, basically. It's like, see ya, probably never see you again, mate. Bye. Like, back down to the ERLs you go. No, that is mad. Like, that is so awkward, the idea they don't know. But the problem, as you say, Peter, and I can tell you, coming from Counter-Strike where we have tournaments, so as a result, there used to be old formats. We used to use a lot of round-robin group stages. And it is famous, Peter, that no player, and in fact, usually even more coach, unless actually the one aside I'll say is unless they're German, because that stereotype is real. Germans just will like study the rules like it was the Bible, bro, and look for every loophole to like cause like a disqualification. Everyone who wasn't German or who was a pro player, I can tell you, it's famous. You only look up the tiebreaker rules once you enter a tiebreaker. I know that sounds mad because it's actually in a way quite unprofessional. I'll even give you a reason why in LEC specifically, this is actually a big fuck up. Because think about like last Split's Vitality with that infamous Nak-Nako game on Yasuo. You think about this format where you only play like 4 best of 3s. You could even make an argument, even though I actually think this is fucking cancer for the game, that you actually shouldn't even treat each game like a totally uniform instance where you're just going to normally draft. You could even argue, Peter, the reason you never should have let the Yasuo pick come through is just because actually if you were cynical on the schedule, that's a week you really needed to clean 2-0. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't, you actually can't do what in theory I want everyone to do, which is be able to coach just the game as if it was World's Finals or the first game of the season and just do the right draft, right? So I agree. It makes it awkward. I also think it's just got to be terrible for the fucking vibe in the team. And then lastly, I'll throw this out there. I actually just hate it from a competitive integrity standpoint too. One of the worst things I think about round robin, it's why personally I would never run it. I'm really glad in Counter-Strike we've gotten rid of this. Is the worst feature of round robin is when you get examples like this Na'Vi one, where it's like you are eliminated, but you still have to play. Other people's lives might depend on your result. And lastly, obviously no one wants to think about this, but you could even essentially match fix or throw the game. Like there's even like darker elements that you could add into that. So no, I don't want that to ever be the case. I want every game you're playing, in my opinion, you should still be in the tournament in some way. That's what you're going for. In an ideal world, you can still win the tournament as long as you're still alive in it. You keep going. I even think that's why famously third place games fucking suck. I saw they had one at EWC recently. Like they're not real. And the team that's the favourite never can't win the tournament anymore and almost never tries as hard. You know what I mean? It's just the way it goes. So no, I agree. It's also a good ugly point. It's a good one for that. Right, okay. Last point of the show. I can't actually believe no one else picked them this week. I can't even believe this is real. How has this been left to me at the end? I thought you would all take this point from me. So I have put it in ugly, boys. I haven't put it in bad. I've put it in ugly, and here's why. It is Fnatic's sense of trigger discipline. Because, bro, oh, fucking hell. Like, here's my analogy for you. I've just thought it up right now, right? It's not at all that they're like I'm going to take some of the credit I gave to Razork over the years back. Here's what I'll give him extra credit. He is intuitively a genius, but there's no calculation going on in that brain. He really is just a mimbo, mate. He's just a beautiful guy with amazing hands who just has a little voice that goes, go in. The joke being, it always says go in every time, and he goes in every time. He's not pause, doing that, that Sherlock Holmes movie that Guy Ritchie did where he stops and he goes like, but I could do this and Duncan. Razork's not doing any of that. And the reason I say that is because motherfucker, he's just like Gollum. He's like, is that the ring going into the mountain? I want the ring though. And he just goes down into the fucking volcano. It's like, you die, Razork. Because, bro, everyone who watched this G2 game, everyone wants to make it about like the classic. They always lose against G2. It's not even just that they lose, boys. Think about this year. They're always leading. They always lead the game early. They've actually got like all the classic cast of euphemism, tempo, control. They have like objective first, move first. They have the kills. They have people fed. And they don't, it's not even that they let the other team outplay them. They always throw it back. It's so crazy. So that's why I say they're trigger discipline. It doesn't exist as far as I can tell. And the worst thing is, Peter, and this kills me inside, like I alluded to with the Razork thing, this is some Hillersang nightmare fuel with stuck in Groundhog Day shit, because it seems like with Hillersang, the genius of Razork is tied to exactly this. And the same way it'll make the most amazing player, which I've seen him do against international teams even, that same impulse is what's making them throw games in the toilet like this. Because I don't even look at that game personally. I didn't think that was that much on G2. I thought, holy fuck, Fnatic can throw any game. This is mental. That's why it's ugly. Come on then. SeeEl, where are we going?
I think that I would agree with those points in the sense that I don't think that their style and the way that Razork starts fights has been the best. That's for sure. But I would also say, to play devil's advocate, that Razork has not been in a team where he's just got to play his style the way that he wants to play the game, like he has in this current roster, and maybe they just need more time. Because, like, we know from interviews and outside sources that when he played with Humanoid for however many years it's been now, a long time, I think 2 years at least, right? 22, 23, 24, almost 3 years, or maybe more. Humanoid is the one that's demanding resources, right?
Okay.
Humanoid is the one that's demanding resources. And then, I mean, I'm looking back now, he's played with Upset for a while. Then he played Reckless one split. Then he played with Noah, who is traditionally someone that would love resources, that wants to carry the game. And so he goes from being like a dog to someone that can play for himself, then going back to having to play for his team, etc., 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 etc. You know, so now I think like whenever you have Upset in the team, you kind of are inclined to want to play for him and give him a lot of resources because he can carry games from start to finish, right? You can win just from him being ahead. But then if you have Humanoid and Upset, then Jungle is just not going to farm. Jungle is not going to be strong. And now he's finally in a team where Poby will just kind of do what you know, what he wants. And so I'm hoping that maybe that this iteration can bring out the best in Razork and he can find a good solution for himself. However, I'm a bit skeptical. Yeah, I'm a bit skeptical. I don't think that this is Razork's strength. I think that he has other ways that he can win. And but we'll see. Let's see.
I mean, it's really hard to judge Fnatic because, frankly, like 3 teams have literally just rolled over and like died against them. Like, they had
And
to
I think, and in general, the level in LEC has dropped a lot since I've left. A lot. Like I think every year, because the new format in 23, we talked about it, right, Pete? I remember even making a video about it. I said after this new format, they're going to be like just worse. So I think 23 was a broken year. 24 was okay, but I think teams just snowball from that. Like you get as good as your environment. And yeah, I just don't think teams are that good right now, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, like, the thing which concerns me about all of this is the Mickey interview. Because Mickey did an interview after they lost where basically he said that their work ethic was not very good right now. Like,
Really?
it was like one of the worst, most doomer interviews. Like, he talks frankly, but he very rarely, like, is doomer to this extent. But he's just like, oh, G2 are better than us. Oh, you know, it started, maybe we had a honeymoon period at the start of the split where everyone was working really hard. But I feel that our intensity has dropped off in the last 2 weeks. And I'm just sitting there thinking, holy moly, right? Like, because you don't give an interview as a player like this unless you're like calling out somebody in your org, right? Like, there's no way that like you don't just in a friendly way do this, right? And it makes me wonder who on Fnatic is being called out here, right? Because I don't think it's Grabs, I don't think it's Upset, right? So I doubt it's Poby, right? So it's clear what's being said here, right? Like maybe I'm just putting words into his mouth.
No, I know what you mean.
But I mean, to me, there was clearly a lot of frustration after that game, right? And like, you know, on the Razork point, you know, look, this is a guy that I've been hyping up as a guy that can play against Asians for multiple years now, right? But I see, you know, maybe Humanoid is the one that was holding him back, and this is Razork, right? It's just that we got to see Razork when he was given a very strict game plan for what he had to do, and he didn't have this like chaos around him, right? To the extent that he has now, right? And
He looked good in that Trimby humanoid roster. He looked good. He looked really good.
Really fucking good in that Trimby. But that's because obviously, you know, Trimby will always shot call everything like that he possibly can, and Humanoid is a really good secondary shot caller if somebody's providing the structure, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've talked about this on Mad Lions 2020. Carzzy provided the structure, Humanoid provided the go button, right? And like this is clearly Razork has to do a little bit more of this for himself, and it's looked really, really rough. And you know, I hope he can put it together. He obviously has hands. He's obviously like
he's mega talented, yeah, of course.
But he just feels that every single time he sees an opportunity, he has to go for it, and he doesn't think about it. And you know, most teams in LEC are too bad to punish this, or if he dies once or twice, it doesn't matter because Fnatic are just out hands the other team, and they get better. They still win. But against G2, you can't do this, right? And I don't think against Koi or KC, you could do this either. Because, you know, if KC get to 35 minutes against this Fnatic team, they're going to out-teamfight them. Like, it's that. Like, I mean, with respect to Oscar, like, I mean, Canna is double the player that he is in a team fight, right? So basically, Fnatic will be playing 4v5 into team fights. As good as I think Upset is, and as good as I think Mickey is, like, the meta right now for top laners is really, really shows which top laners are really good team fighters and which ones aren't, right? And so, you know, I think KC versus Fnatic is the most likely best of 5, you know, for playing for Worlds. And frankly, Razok is going to have to be more controlled than this against KC, or Fnatic are just going to go to lower bracket, right? Yeah.
Double
and
the
that's all.
player?
What?
Jeez. Double the player, Pete. You really have retired.
I mean, like,
I'll be
I like it.
yourself, right?
I
Like,
like
I mean,
it.
Unfortunately for Thorin, if he got me 3 or 4 years ago in my youthful ignorance and idiocy and immaturity, I would have said some stupid shit with you, and he would have had a better show. But double the, come on, look, Oscar.
Listen, he's leaving on a bagger.
I hope you watch this. I believe in you, mate. You can improve. Okay. I wouldn't say double. Mate.
yeah. Triple is what Chris is getting at here. Right?
Calm down, Pete.
I think Oscar has his strengths, right?
He
Team fighting is not
he has potential. His potential hasn't been
his
reached yet.
potential. Yes.
Team fight
I
can
agree.
work better.
Listen, I agree. All he needs to do to complete his transformation is pull on that GX jersey.